Chapter 1274. Within the Xingyan dynasty, evil Lord Li Zongjio had disappeared for a period of time. Some people said that evil Lord had gone into closed-door training. Some people said that evil Lord Li Zongjio had gone mad during cultivation and no one knew where he had died. However, such a statement was very absurd. However, the White Deer residence continued to open with great haste. It was even said that the White Deer Mansion had directly reached a strategic cooperation with the Heavenly Water sect in the Xingyan dynasty. This huge net was also directly woven and the spread was quite large. It made people dumbfounded. At this moment, the 14th prince, who was in charge of Qingkuan's sacred city, had also launched a great undertaking. He directly discussed with the Heike dynasty and jointly formed an action plan to exterminate the demon race. Both sides carried out the plan and the results were remarkable. It was also quite effective. The imperial courts of both sides gradually established their status. Whether it was the Heike dynasty or the Xingyan dynasty, they had their own good performance. It was worth mentioning that there was a battle. Some demon race troops came out of nowhere and actually wanted to attack Luoxia City under the leadership of two demon kings. They probably saw that Luoxia City's geographical environment had an advantage. Moreover, they were relatively remote, so they wouldn't appear to be so ostentatious. However, as soon as they approached the Luoxia City with the demon army that they had gathered with great difficulty, they were directly burned to ashes by a flame that descended from the sky. Raging fire filled the sky. It was also at this moment that the imperial family of the Heike dynasty and the imperial family of the Xingyan dynasty caught a piece of news. There was actually a sovereign realm meta-beast in Luoxia City. How could no one have discovered such a terrifying existence before? With such a meta-beast protecting Luoxia City. Suddenly, the reputation of Luoxia City's Li family directly swept through the entire Xingyan dynasty. Countless people wanted to be a disciple of the Li family. Even if it was to be a guest elder or an outer disciple, it was not a problem. The most important thing was to be able to climb up the social ladder. With such a big backer, it would be a waste if they did not rely on it. However, it was already too late when these people wanted to curry favor with them. The Li family didn't care about these people joining them. They didn't even have any interest in the conditions promised by these people. However, a part of the Li family's disciples had secretly been sent to the original royal city, Sacred Flame Royal City, to enter the 3 major academies to learn and cultivate. The most important thing was to improve their intrinsic quality. Otherwise, the Li family couldn't only rely on a few meta-beasts. Li Zongjio couldn't just rely on the Li family's support. Fortunately, Li Tianqing's management was good. The Li family's disciples didn't start to become arrogant. On the contrary, they were more disciplined. If they were found to be bullying others, regardless of whether it was right or wrong, they would first punish the Li family's disciples. If it was found that the Li family's disciples were causing trouble, the punishment would be quite severe. Although Li Zongjio had disappeared and kept a low profile for a long time, it was believed that when Evil Lord returned he would be in a more aggressive state. Li Tianqing and the others of the Li family didn't know where Li Zongjio was now. They only said that he was going to find Qi Yanran, but he hadn't returned yet. They really didn't know what had happened. However, Li Tianqing and the others also knew that even if something happened to Li Zongjio, it would be difficult for them to help. After all, Li Zongjio's strength was obvious. If even Li Zongjio couldn't solve it, they couldn't do anything either. At this moment, Li Zongjio had already gone deep into the Eldritch Land. He had arrived at the core of the Eldritch Land. Here, even Li Zongjio didn't dare to take risks. Instead, he moved forward on foot and restrained his aura. Right now, they were passing through an incomparably withered and dark forest. When he got closer, Li Zongjio's aura began to be devoured by the dark forest around him. If he remembered correctly, this was also a forbidden area. Devouring Moon Forest. There was no day or night in the Devouring Moon Forest. The deeper one went into the forest, the darker the surroundings became. This made people even more afraid to approach the forest. Once there was any light, the countless devouring moon beasts hiding in the forest would come out in full force. Usually, these devouring moon beasts were like fossils. They stayed in the same place and didn't move. However, once there was any light, they would launch a fierce attack. First, they would use the human wave tactic to drown the light. Then they would devour it. No matter what it was, they would swallow it into their stomachs until the light disappeared. Such a strange forest naturally became a forbidden area. Anyone who got close would die. This was because those who got close would not hesitate to light up their torches. Some of the more cunning ones would directly ignite their own yuan energy to illuminate the surroundings. When the surroundings were illuminated, they would be devoured in an instant. Countless mouths would rush up crazily and devour them completely. Li Zongjio walked very cautiously in this place. Although there was no light and he couldn't see clearly, Li Zongjio's mental energy had already covered the surroundings. He immediately found the right direction and moved forward quickly. Boom! Li Zongjio's figure flashed rapidly in the darkness. This forest was indeed rather large. Even with Li Zongjio's quick pace, it still took him 3 full days to pass through the devouring moon forest. Gradually, light began to appear in front of him. These devouring moon beasts didn't care about the light outside this area. They only cared about the light that was under their jurisdiction. This was because the territory outside this area belonged to another meta-beast race. If they were to rashly cross this area, it would cause a catastrophe. It wasn't as simple as a war anymore. Instead, it was the location of a true catastrophe. However, just as Li Zongjio was about to leave this place, he suddenly heard an extremely weak sound not far away. Movement? The surroundings were supposed to be silent, but why was there a commotion? Suddenly, the commotion accelerated. He quickly ran into the distance. Boom! Li Zongjio's figure also rushed in this direction without hesitation. Obviously, the sound was directed at him. The figure that was being chased seemed to realize that he couldn't escape from Li Zongjio's evil hands. He immediately turned around and threw a stone. Fuck! The stone didn't move at first. However, when it appeared 10 feet away from Li Zongjio, it suddenly lit up with a dazzling light. Chapter 1275. When this ray of light appeared, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. Li Zongjio knew that something bad was about to happen. Sweet, 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 sweet. The ground seemed to be moving. The light had awakened the Lunar Eater. Get lost. Li Zongjio knew that he didn't have much time left, so he suddenly burst out with a powerful force. The force of thunder instantly burst out from the ground, and the surrounding force instantly spread out like a rolling wave. However, all of these rolling waves were only palm-sized Lunar Eater. If he was delayed by these Moon Eater beasts, he would be devoured in no time at all. One should know that these Moon Eater beasts were extremely powerful, and their movements were extremely terrifying. Once bitten, it would be like being pulled by 10,000 elephants. Therefore, even an ordinary Supreme Being would find it hard to break free. Under Li Zongjio's crazy movements, he smashed a bloody path with the Black Dragon Hammer. These Moon Eater beasts did not know pain, nor did they know fatigue. They only knew how to charge forward, devouring everything that had happened. Even the bead had somehow managed to stay firmly attached to Li Zongjio's body. At the very least, it had maintained a certain distance from Li Zongjio and had never been extinguished. With a flick of his finger, Li Zongjio shattered the bead in front of him. However, it was already too late. The Moon Eater before him had already awakened and locked onto Li Zongjio's aura. They had to devour Li Zongjio until not even his bones were left. Only then would they stop. Fortunately, Li Zongjio's Black Dragon Hammer was not to be trifled with. It landed with a loud bang, and immediately, an extremely terrifying tremor erupted. Countless bolts of lightning blasted the Lunar Eater beasts away. Rumble! While Li Zongjio was fighting to his heart's content, a figure swiftly left the devouring moon forest. The figure turned around to look at Li Zongjio, who was doing his best to fight, and finally heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, they did not catch up. But who is this guy? Is he here to assassinate me? No wonder grandfather told me not to go out recently. With that thought in mind, the figure quickly left the place. However, Li Zongjio's movement was quite huge. His aura was fierce as he fought his way out. Rumble! Li Zongjio brought his hammer and broke out of the encirclement. A few Lunar Eater rushed to Li Zongjio and bit Li Zongjio. Immediately, Li Zongjio felt as though his flesh was about to be bitten off by these rat-like Moon Eater beasts. As his fists flew, the Moon Eater beasts were sent flying. Fortunately, he was quite close to the edge of the forest. After half a minute of arduous progress, Li Zongjio finally managed to break out of the encirclement of the Moon Eater beasts. When Li Zongjio left the devouring moon forest, the Lunar Eater beasts obediently retreated. Li Zongjio did not need to breathe a sigh of relief. If he had encountered these Lunar Eater beasts in the center of the Lunar Eater forest, even if Li Zongjio used all his moves, the probability of him coming out alive was less than 1 in 10. Therefore, he was considered lucky this time. However, someone else was not so lucky. Li Zongjio was not even in a hurry to recover from his injuries. He directly chased after the figure from before. During this period, Li Zongjio did not hold back. He directly locked onto the figure and swiftly attacked. Fortunately, the other party did not go far. It only took him 3 minutes to catch up with the figure. Boom! Li Zongjio's figure landed, blocking the person who was running wildly. What? The person obviously did not expect Li Zongjio to be able to escape from the Lunar Eater forest. He was shocked. He immediately shifted his body and fled into the distance. In the process, he also used some kind of talisman to increase his speed abruptly. Moreover, his movement also disturbed the aura within a radius of 1,000 feet. It was simply an escape tool. Ordinary people would not be able to figure out which direction they were running in. In the end, they would lose their target. It was quite powerful. It was a pity that Li Zongjio was not an ordinary person. This kind of escape trick was nothing in front of the experienced Li Zongjio. He instantly increased his speed and rushed to the back of the mysterious person. Under the horrified gaze of the mysterious person, he pushed his palm on his back. Boom! The man's figure flew out and crashed into the mud. This move was like the legendary head-on fall, which was exactly what it looked like. His 2 legs dangled outside and swayed non-stop. It took him a lot of effort to pull himself out. He did not give up. He took out something from his hand and prepared to release it and escape again. Li Zongjio pointed his sword at the mysterious person's head. "Come again and I'll chop you up," Li Zongjio said calmly. The person in front of him was wearing a black robe and his body was wrapped tightly. He couldn't see his face clearly. The only thing that could be seen was a pair of eyes. In addition, there was a string of mini medicine basket wrapped around his waist. These baskets could be easily used to store herbs. It was like an open cloth bag. It was extremely convenient. However, the attributes of the storage ring were different. It did not require mental strength to open. From the looks of it, he should be an alchemist. Li Zongjio. Just as Li Zongjio was about to attack, the mysterious person in front of him called out his name. Moreover, the voice sounded a little familiar. "It's me." The mysterious person in front of him took off her mask, revealing a familiar and exquisite face. He really knew the person in front of him. In fact, he was very familiar with her. "Do Ling?" Li Zongjio said in surprise. This girl seemed to have studied in the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion for a period of time. Then she said that she wanted to go back to her hometown. However, Li Zongjio knew that Do Ling-er's identity was not simple. He had guessed that Do Ling-er was from the Untainted Land. However, he did not expect that Do Ling-er had hidden her identity so well. Not only was she from the Untainted Land, but she was also from the depths of the Untainted Land. He did not know what kind of family she was from. Fortunately, he did not kill Do Ling-er with his sword. "I almost killed you." Chapter 1276. Fortunately, Li Zongjio withdrew his sword, and Do Ling-er recognized Li Zongjio in time. Otherwise, Do Ling-er might not have been able to wake up. "I thought something was chasing after me. Fortunately, you didn't die in there." Do Ling-er's face was also full of embarrassment. However, she was sent flying by Li Zongjio's palm. She was rolling on the ground, and at this moment, she was quite embarrassed to get up. "It's okay. It's just a small matter. What are you doing? Picking herbs?" Li Zongjio glanced at her and asked. "Yes, I'm refining an elixir. I need the moon-devouring fruit, so I took the risk to pick some. Dou Ling was naturally shocked by the commotion just now. She still had lingering fear in her heart. After all, this matter was not as simple as she had imagined. If there was even the slightest mistake just now, she would have been directly captured. Then, there would not be any good ending. At that time, there would not even be a corpse left. You really don't want to live anymore by coming to such a place. Li Zongjio could not help but say. Dou Ling also smiled foolishly. It's okay. As long as I'm careful, I'll be fine. Just as Li Zongjio and Dou Ling were chatting, two rays of light were rapidly approaching from afar. Boom, boom. The momentum of the two had already reached the 8th grade sovereign realm. Few experts of the human clan could reach such a realm. Even in the chaotic sects outside, no one had seen such a scene before. Ling, why are you running around by yourself again? Are you trying to make us old things anxious to death? A middle-aged man said sternly after he landed. At the same time, he looked at Li Zongjio in front of him with a cautious and questioning gaze. Obviously, they had never seen Li Zongjio before. Moreover, looking at Li Zongjio's appearance, he did not look like someone from the chaotic world. I wonder which clan this little brother is from? To be able to walk alone in such a place, one must not be an ordinary person. Moreover, this middle-aged man also observed Li Zongjio's aura and found that he was not simple. At the very least, he was at the 3rd grade, or even the 4th grade Supreme Being realm. To be able to have such a cultivation at such a young age was already quite a monster, so his attitude towards Li Zongjio was not too bad. Otherwise, if this Li Zongjio was just a little trash, he would definitely not have such a good attitude towards Li Zongjio. He would have directly driven Li Zongjio away. What kind of thing was this? How dare he mix around with their young miss? I am Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio was not a person who was purely pretentious. When introducing himself to others, he could not just say that he was Evil Lord. It was fine if he was an enemy, but since he was from Dou Ling's clan, of course, he had to give some face. Li Zongjio still understood this principle of being a person. Li Zongjio? The two looked at each other. In their memories, there was no surname of the Li clan. Could it be that this was a hidden ancient clan? 3rd uncle, 4th uncle, this is the person I always tell you about. Li Zongjio from the Xingyan dynasty's Bailu Manor. He is very powerful. Dou Ling saw that the two of them could not figure out Li Zongjio's identity and were still looking at him for a long time, so she simply said, Xingyan dynasty? Bailu Manor? The two of them certainly did not remember Bailu Manor, but when they talked about the Xingyan dynasty, they understood that Li Zongjio was actually a person from the Xingyan dynasty. Although they did not inquire much about the Saint Flame Empire, it was just a small empire after all. So what? Even if they boasted to the heavens, there might not be any great person who would appear in the Saint Flame Empire. It turned out that he was just a person from the Xingyan dynasty. Even if he was a talent, his future development would be very limited. The two of them were relieved and did not discriminate too much against Li Zongjio. After all, Li Zongjio was able to rely on his own efforts to improve his cultivation to the current level. It was also quite difficult for him. It also showed that Li Zongjio was a very talented person. If such a person was recruited into the clan, it would be a good thing. But if he wanted to touch the young miss, this matter would not be agreed. Okay, let's talk later. I still have something to do. Li Zongjio said. Since the experts in Dou Ling's clan were here, there was no need to worry. Moreover, Dou Ling had many strange magical weapons in her hands. With these magical weapons, she could escape from danger. Li Zongjio did not need to worry. It was rare to see an old friend in such a place, so he was quite happy. Okay, you can come to my house later. My house is near the Sky Suspension Mountain. When you arrive, you will be able to sense Little Yaya. The Little Yaya that Dou Ling mentioned was the moon-howling heavenly wolf king. Yi Shiwen did not expect that this guy was still alive. Perhaps the moon-howling heavenly wolf king was quite restricted in such a place. Usually, it would not dare to take half a step out. If it was careless and encountered something when it went out, it would definitely be finished. If you come, activate this rune stone near the Sky Suspension Mountain. We will naturally send someone to welcome you. Dou Ling's third uncle directly stepped forward and gave Li Zongjio a small yellow stone. Li Zongjio did not refuse and directly took it. After all, the moon-howling heavenly wolf king was a former loyal subordinate of Li Zongjio. More or less, he had to go and see this child. However, all of this had to wait until Li Zongjio found Qi Yanran on the spot. After receiving the talisman stone, Li Zongjio's figure also leaped and instantly disappeared in front of the three of them. Be careful on the way. Dou Ling shouted at Li Zongjio's back. At the same time, she waved her hand. She did not expect that Li Zongjio could appear in this untainted land. Seeing Li Zongjio again and seeing her old friends, Dou Ling missed them very much. You should stop interacting with these outside friends. It's not like you don't know that we are a family that has been passed down since ancient times. Our family's bloodline cannot be ruined by outsiders. Fourth uncle said somewhat tactfully. He was afraid that Dou Ling would do something stupid. After all, the girl was still young and there were too many liars and bad people out there. It was very common for her to be cheated by others if she was not careful. However, she must not take it lightly. Fourth uncle, what are you talking about? What are you thinking about? You are so wretched. Dou Ling could not help but look at her fourth uncle with disdain. That's right, fourth brother. What are you saying in front of the child? Third uncle also sternly reprimanded. However, before Dou Ling could feel happy, her third uncle spoke again. You will have a good time when you go back. Your grandfather has been looking for you like crazy. If he knows that you are in the devouring moon forest, just imagine how your grandfather will treat you. No way. Chapter 1277. Dou Ling did not have the time to tell Li Zongjio. In fact, she believed him. The first sound. This surname was relatively rare. Therefore, when Dou Ling entered the Xingyan dynasty to train, she changed her name to Dou Ling. However, who knew that there were not many people with the surname Dou? It was difficult for Dou Ling, but this was nothing. Wait, if he goes further, he will be in the depths of the Eldritch Land. Where is he going? Dou Ling suddenly thought. Third uncle and fourth uncle were also startled awake. Coming from the Xingyan dynasty, didn't that mean that he came from the outside? He directly passed through the dangerous devouring moon forest and came to the vicinity of Sky Suspension Mountain. Now, he was even heading deeper. If he went further in, even the Du clan would not be willing to go near. They even directly forbade the clan members from setting foot in such a place. This was because if they rushed into such a place, the danger they would encounter was unimaginable and unpredictable. The degree of danger was very high. Li Zongjio was still going deeper. What was he going to do? Could it be that this kid wants to go through the Eldritch Land? To the sacred martial realm? How is that possible? Even the Du clan had been trying hard to break through the limits of their realm for so many years, so that one day, they could lead the Du clan to break through the limits of the Eldritch Land and directly attack the sacred martial realm, the legendary sacred martial realm. However, it seemed that this matter was a little far away. They had to make sufficient preparations. The more they experimented, the clearer they became that it was almost impossible to cross the last line of defense and the last region of the untainted land. In such an area, there were no longer any living creatures. There were only endless storms, frost, heavenly fire, burial, and destruction. This area was no longer a place to fight against humans or meta beasts. It was a real battle against the heavens and earth. Similarly, this natural barrier also directly isolated the people of the sacred martial realm. It was difficult for the people of the sacred martial realm to cross to this side. Even if there were, they would most likely be dead by the time they came. Even if they did not die, they would lose a layer of skin. This kind of thing was simply unpredictable. Third uncle and fourth uncle's eyes were also filled with shock. They couldn't possibly come all the way here to court death, right? Forget it. It's fine. Don't bother about that guy. That guy would never do something he's not confident in. Just let him be. I've plucked a lot of moon-devouring fruits this time. I can finally refine my pills. Clearly, Dou Ling was also very happy and excited. If a natural alchemist had to deal with herbs every moment of the day, they wouldn't find it boring. Instead, they would enjoy it. Because of this, Dou Ling didn't have any worries. They were all immersed in alchemy, especially now that they had unlocked their alchemy talent. They could unleash their strength without restraint. When Li Zongjio comes, I'll definitely give him a big surprise, Dou Ling thought. Then, under the escort of the two experts, they returned to the Sky Suspension Mountain. At this moment, Li Zongjio's figure had already landed on the top of a mountain. This mountain was more than 10,000 meters high. However, any other mountain behind this one was taller than this one. The clouds were directly trampled under their feet. Li Zongjio immediately saw that there seemed to be a strong wave of invisible release below. It was this force that caused the climate change within 10,000 miles to be quite special. It was enough to see that the environment below was actually changing the 4 seasons, which were constantly alternating. This kind of alternation was going on, changing the sky and the sun. This kind of array formation cultivation should have reached the divine level. Li Zongjio thought in his heart. The divine level. It was targeted at a certain skill or strength. For example, Li Zongjio's alchemy skills in his previous life had already surpassed the 9th grade and reached the divine level. As for the spirit formation before them, the person who had set up the spirit formation possessed a cultivation that surpassed God level. A divine level array formation master had set out. Even Dragon Island didn't have such a large-scale array formation. When Li Zongjio first went to Dragon Island, he wasn't surprised either. In such a small sparrow god palace, there was actually someone with such strength. Immediately, Li Zongjio became vigilant. His figure landed. It was right in front of the clear pool that Fat and Skinny had described earlier. Under the pool, he could see an upside-down palace. Such a miraculous scene caused Li Zongjio to be slightly shocked. Upside-down universe formation. Li Zongjio also saw the difference in this array formation. If his array formation cultivation hadn't improved, he also wouldn't have been able to see the mystery behind it. After seeing it now, he was extremely shocked. Where are the people of Sparrow God Palace? Li Zongjio didn't come here to admire how ostentatious and magical Sparrow God Palace was. He came here to look for someone. Li Zongjio's voice reverberated, causing the pool in front of him to ripple. Some birds in the surroundings seemed to be startled and flew away. Other than that, there was no other movement. Li Zongjio frowned. Looks like you're forcing me to make a move. The unparalleled sword appeared in his hand. Then, Li Zongjio jumped up and slashed at the pool below. Boom! Sword chi rampaged. When this terrifying sword chi was released, it caused the surface of the pool to tremble. However, the sword chi was transferred to another place. This upside-down universe formation didn't only have the magical effect of landscape. It also had the effect of defense. Such an effect would play a considerable role in defense. Li Zongjio knew that he couldn't relax in the slightest when dealing with a formation of this level. Otherwise, he would be the one injured. Li Zongjio immediately circulated his yuan power. In the next moment, the blood dragon's soul whizzed out along with his sword chi. Boom! The surface of the pool was like a mirror. It was directly scratched and broken. At the same time, a wave directly brought Li Zongjio in. Immediately, Li Zongjio felt that the world was spinning under his feet. He was brought in by the power of the array and appeared outside the Sparrow Divine Palace. Beside him was the pool from before, surrounded by a vast and boundless plain. In front of him was a palace that wasn't very big. There was also a statue in front of the palace. It was difficult to tell whether it was a phoenix or a sparrow. It even had the characteristics of both. Li Zongjio was surprised that such a creature could exist. Since you don't want to show yourself, don't blame me for being impolite, Li Zongjio immediately said. However, just as Li Zongjio was about to continue attacking, a wave suddenly came from the front. After that, a beautiful woman in green clothes appeared not too far away from Li Zongjio. She looked at Li Zongjio with a cold gaze. Who is disturbing the forbidden area of Sparrow God Palace? Leave immediately. After the beautiful woman in green appeared, she also looked at Li Zongjio coldly. Chapter 1278. The beautiful woman in green's eyes seemed to be filled with endless frost. It was like a cold storm that could devour people at any time. Anyone who looked into such a pair of eyes would feel very uncomfortable. Such a state was not intentional. It was due to the cultivation technique she cultivated. It was enough to see through people's hearts. However, when the beautiful woman in green looked at the young man in front of her, it was as if she saw a mountain hidden in layers of fog. She could not see his origin, but she knew that Li Zongjio's cultivation was not simple. She could not be careless. "I'm looking for someone," Li Zongjio said. Since someone had shown up, it was easy to deal with. Otherwise, people would think that this place was abandoned. If Li Zongjio accidentally demolished this place, it would be troublesome. "The person you are looking for is not here. Please leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." The beautiful woman in green immediately condensed an ice sword in her hand. Cold light surged on the sword. However, Li Zongjio had already sensed that the desolate heaven essence was nearby. Boom! Li Zongjio's mental strength was like a condensed force that suddenly exploded. He immediately found the location of the desolate heaven essence. It was in this palace. Then, Li Zongjio's eyes immediately became murderous. "Bring Yanran out. Otherwise, don't blame me for flattening your Sparrow Divine Palace," Li Zongjio said coldly. The unparalleled sword also appeared in his hand. A bloody aura was released. Even the beautiful woman in green could not help but frown when she felt this aura. "Who are you?" Originally, the beautiful woman in green did not care who Li Zongjio was. She only wanted him to leave this place. However, Li Zongjio had called out Qi Yanran's name. For the beautiful woman in green, this was a little surprising. It was indeed the ability of the person in front of him to find this place. In fact, after hearing what Qi Yanran said, combined with the appearance of the young man in front of him, he had some guesses in his heart. "You're that Li Zongjio?" The beautiful woman in green said in surprise. "That's right. It seems that Yanran is here." Li Zongjio tried to use his mental strength to lock onto Qi Yanran's position, but the palace itself was covered by a large array, and Li Zongjio's mental strength could not penetrate it. "Yanran is receiving the inheritance of Sparrow Divine Palace." The beautiful lady in green glanced at Li Zongjio and said. At least, that was all she knew. At the same time, the beautiful woman in green turned around to look at the palace behind her. "Don't stay here. If you wake up the elder, the consequences will be unimaginable." "Impossible, the inheritance wouldn't take so long. You must have forced them to stay. Even during the inheritance, they could move freely. Do you really think I'm a 3-year-old child?" Li Zongjio said angrily. If it was an ignorant person, he would have been fooled by the beautiful woman in front of him. After all, it was really unclear whether they were receiving the inheritance or not. However, Li Zongjio was once a true venerable, so he was very clear about the methods of these inheritances. The so-called inheritance was just a digestion process. Therefore, there were no restrictions on Qi Yanran's movements. At least, it was not a problem for her to see Li Zongjio. If the other party insisted on blocking and hiding, then there was a problem. A sect like yours wants its disciples to sever their ties with the mortal world. I'm sure Yanran is unwilling, so you can imprison her," Li Zongjio said indifferently, and his tone was extremely indifferent. As an expert, this kind of thinking was very normal. Li Zongjio had seen many of these people's thoughts in his previous life, so he was quite clear about this. A trace of surprise flashed in the beautiful woman's eyes. She did not expect Li Zongjio to be able to say it so accurately, and it seemed like he knew them very well. "It's not what you think. You'd better leave quickly. When the time is right, Yanran will naturally come out to see you," the beautiful woman said. "Get out of the way. I don't want to hurt you. This has nothing to do with you, but if you insist on stopping me, don't blame me for being impolite." Li Zongjio's words were full of threats. The beautiful woman also knew that Li Zongjio was not joking. However, she was also quite anxious. If Li Zongming was unwilling to leave, he would not be able to leave even if he wanted to if he really alarmed the elder. "Bing Ke, why don't you get rid of him?" Just as Li Zongjio was about to take action, An old melodious voice sounded. When the beautiful woman heard this voice, her body trembled. "Leave quickly, the elder has already found you," Bing Ke quickly said to Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio looked arrogantly into the depths of the palace. "Damn old woman, if you don't release my Yenran, don't blame me for being impolite. When the time comes, I will tear down this broken palace of yours. Let's see how you explain it to your ancestors." Li Zongjio sneered. This sentence naturally enraged the elder. Presumptuous. Suddenly, a terrifying aura swept out from the Peacock Palace. The sky and earth changed color. It seemed like there were thousands of rays of light rapidly condensing in front of them. Finally, these rays of light transformed into a figure. It was an old woman who looked to be at least 80 or 90 years old. She had a head full of silver hair. With every step she took, a tyrannical aura was released. "You are Li Zongjio? You have been sincere enough to chase me here. Now, turn around and leave. I can give you a good fortune." After the old woman appeared, the light on her body gradually converged. Finally, all the light disappeared. She was holding a walking stick in her hand. On the walking stick, there were countless birds carved. After appearing, the old woman was not in a hurry to kill Li Zongjio. In contrast, letting Li Zongjio take the initiative to leave and retreat was definitely better than killing Li Zongjio. After all, for Qi Yenran, it was better to recognize that these men in the secular world were not reliable. It was better than always having a thought. "Ha, give me a good fortune? I'm afraid you don't know who I am." Li Zongjio was so angry that he laughed. She really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. She actually wanted to give him, the evil lord, a good fortune. It was true that the ignorant were fearless. If someone with the cultivation of his previous life dared to say this, Li Zongjio would have twisted his head off and stuffed it directly into his stomach to let him know what a good fortune was. "Young man, it is not easy for you to have such a cultivation. Why sacrifice in vain? Qi Yenran is not someone you secular people can touch. In other words, you are not worthy of her. Do you understand? If you insist on not leaving, don't blame me for killing you to break Yenran's thoughts." Chapter 1279. The crutch in the old woman's hand suddenly fell to the ground, and a terrifying aura burst out, covering Li Zongjio. This kind of power surged rapidly. A trace of surprise flashed in Bing Ke's eyes. She never thought that the elder would directly attack Li Zongjio. This aura came directly from the pressure of a venerable. How could ordinary people withstand it? Even an ordinary 8th grade sovereign would not be able to withstand it. "Elder," Bing Ke originally wanted to plead for Li Zongjio. However, she saw Li Zongjio's figure disappear from the spot, causing the elder's aura to fall directly into the air. It was as if she had punched directly into the air, and nothing happened. In the next moment, Li Zongjio's figure appeared in the air above the elder. Boom! Without saying a word, he directly slashed downwards with the terrifying aura of the unparalleled sword. Such a mighty movement immediately shocked the third elder of Sparrow Divine Palace. Although Li Zongjio's reaction speed was indeed very fast, it was still very fast. It was limited to surprise. "Your reaction is quite fast, but so what? It still doesn't change the fact that you are immortal," the third elder said in a deep voice. Suddenly, a ray of light burst out from the crutch in his hand. This ray of light turned into a light wing that was dozens of feet long, and directly flung it towards Li Zongjio, who was in the sky. Boom! When this wing flapped, it was as if a gale that could stretch for tens of thousands of miles had been blown. Li Zongjio's figure directly turned into nothingness in this ray of light, and disappeared. The third elder was immediately shocked again. He did not know that Li Zongjio actually had such means. Not only did he use such a move, but he was also able to deceive the third elder. The third elder found it hard to believe. A mere mortal actually had such ability. "Your reaction is too slow." Li Zongjio appeared in front of the third elder. The unparalleled sword was also directly slashed out without any hesitation. Sword chi swirled around the sword, surging brilliantly. At this moment, he was indeed locked down by Li Zongjio's sword. The third elder could only rely on his own elemental energy to block Li Zongjio's attack. Just as Li Zongjio was about to unleash his attack, Li Zongjio's third elder could only rely on his own elemental energy to block Li Zongjio's attack. Boom! The third elder relied on his powerful yuan power to barely remain standing on the spot. It seemed as if he had not moved an inch. However, the impact of this sword caused the blood in his body to churn. The blood and qi in his body were boiling. However, he had to pretend to be calm on the surface in order to stabilize his condition. Cough cough. However, the third elder was also quite surprised. How could Li Zongjio disappear after making a move? Elder, be careful. Just as the third elder was feeling puzzled, he suddenly heard a voice that seemed to come from far away. It was Ice Sparrow's voice. But why did this voice sound so distant? And be careful? What was there to be careful of? The moment he raised his head, the third elder was immediately suppressed by a pagoda that descended from the sky. Boom! Li Zongjio's pagoda palm directly hit the third elder. The third elder immediately circulated his yuan power and forcefully shattered the pagoda palm around him. Buzz! However, even though the pagoda was easily destroyed by this palm strike, 8 more pillars appeared in its place. The third elder had only taken a glance at it before he knew that the array artifact's power was extraordinary. Soul-burning array. The third elder was shocked. He did not expect to be trapped in Li Zongjio's array. Unknowingly, he had fallen into Li Zongjio's array. Old woman, you're getting old. Are you a little useless? How do you feel about my strength as a mortal? Li Zongjio sneered. The demon-suppressing ruler was suspended above the array, constantly releasing the power of imprisonment, firmly trapping the third elder of Sparrow God Palace. You're courting death. The third elder, who was trapped in the array, was naturally very unconvinced. He wanted to directly break the array. However, even after using all his skills, he was still unable to do anything. He was unable to shake the burning soul array. After all, the refining of the burning soul pillar had cost Sky Wu a great deal of effort. Moreover, the third elder could not afford to be careless while staying in this array. This was because the surrounding energy was constantly devouring his spiritual strength. Ice Sparrow didn't expect things to develop to this point. It was really unexpected. What was even more unexpected was that Li Zongjio could actually trap the third elder. Although the third elder was the weakest among the elders, he was already in the honorable realm. According to the elder, his realm had already reached the peak of the Saint Martial Continent. If he wanted to break through, he must leave the Saint Martial Continent and go to the Saint Martial realm. The third elder, who had already reached the peak of the Saint Martial Continent, was now trapped in the array by Li Zongjio. After being humiliated by Li Zongjio, the third elder, who had cultivated for hundreds of years, could not help but be angry. He wanted to tear this place apart and kill Li Zongjio. You better release the third elder, or don't blame me for being impolite. After seeing this scene, Bing Ke was already at a loss. She knew that she was definitely not Li Zongjio's opponent with her strength. Now, there was no other way. She couldn't just watch the third elder fall into the hands of others. Save it, I'm too lazy to care about you. Go and call the other elders out. Otherwise, you won't even have the chance to regret. Li Zongjio said indifferently. He did not bully the beautiful woman in green in front of him. Withered Leaf could feel that the beautiful woman in green was a very kind person who did not want to hurt others. She even felt weak when facing Li Zongjio's threats. Therefore, Li Zongjio appeared to be more polite. Otherwise, he would not have shown any mercy. Even if you were an 80-year-old woman, he would still treat you the same. It was obvious from Li Zongjio's resolute means. In the array, Li Zongjio looked at the stubborn third elder and added fuel to her fire. Now, she could feel an unprecedented pleasure in the array. No need, I'm here. A stooped figure appeared on the steps in front of the Sparrow Divine Palace. This person looked more than 100 years older than the third elder. He was ready to step into the coffin at any time. He was already so old, yet he was still presiding over the affairs of the Sparrow Divine Palace. The burning soul pillar is made of Tianshan gold and Hunyuan stone. It can't be refined with the cultivation method of the human tribe. However, I don't sense the aura of the demon tribe on you. It seems that many demons have fallen in your hands. You and I are kindred spirits. What can't we talk about? The person who appeared was the second elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace. Chapter 1280. After the second elder appeared, he directly walked around the burning soul array. He was actually able to tell that this array was not Li Zongjio's. It seems like the God-level array master is you. You should know your limits at your age. Return Yenran to me. Li Zongjio said nonchalantly. He wasn't there to incur the wrath of the people of Sparrow Divine Palace. However, if these people insisted on making an enemy out of Li Zongjio, they shouldn't blame Li Zongjio for being ruthless. No matter what the reason was, dying at the hands of Evil Lord wasn't an injustice. I have only inherited my master's legacy and have yet to reach the God level. Since you know your limits, can you give me some face and let my junior sister go first? That would be a show of sincerity. The second elder's attitude was extremely amiable. However, there was some worry in the eyes of the Ice Sparrow. Although the three elders were very strict during training, only the second elder's murderous aura was 100 times more powerful under the gentleness. Therefore, the Ice Sparrow was extremely respectful to the second elder. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Li Zongjio waved his hand and sucked the burning soul array into the fiery hell. He wanted to let the third elder have a good taste of the endless flames. When the second elder saw that Li Zongjio not only refused to let them go, but also directly put them away along with the formation, he knew that Li Zongjio was definitely a difficult person to deal with. Given your burning soul array, it will take you at least 500 years to refine my junior sister. If we are in a deadlock, it doesn't matter if I don't see my junior sister for 500 years. However, can you not see your Yenran for 500 years? The second elder's tone gradually turned cold. He wanted Li Zongjio to back off. Ah, old fart, you think too highly of yourselves. How long do you think it will take to tear down your Sparrow Divine Palace? Li Zongjio suddenly burst into laughter. He recalled the time when he had inflicted heavy losses on the Dragon Island. He was so arrogant. In the end, these thousands of dragon experts chased him all over the sky. After that, almost all of them were killed by Li Zongjio. After that, no one dared to follow him. In the end, Li Zongjio left. It seemed that he had been too amiable, causing these people to think that he was easy to negotiate with. Li Zongjio did not waste any more words as he circulated his elemental energy in his palm. Immediately, a surge of aura condensed, and such a sharp force directly blasted towards the second elder. However, the second elder was also very vigilant. After getting close to Li Zongjio, he also wanted to make a move and directly cripple Li Zongjio. Boom! Their palms collided in an instant, causing an extremely strong vibration. Li Zongjio pushed his left hand behind him, directly dispersing the force that had entered his body. After all, the second elder was a peak sovereign expert, and he had the strength of the demon clan. In terms of physical strength, he was even more terrifying than Li Zongjio. However, with this move, Li Zongjio's soul-slaying flying dagger also followed the momentum and directly flew towards the second elder. Boom! The flying dagger's momentum was swift and violent. The flying dagger's body was directly hidden in the void. The second elder sensed the movement around him, and a dangerous aura rapidly approached him. He knew that Li Zongjio had made a secret move. However, even though the second elder quickly withdrew his defensive posture, he was still directly injured by Li Zongjio's move. The power of the soul-slaying flying dagger directly pierced a hole in the mental energy of the second elder of Sparrow God Palace. Just such a hole would require the second elder to spend at least 100 years and energy to repair it. It was not an easy task. You are courting death. The second elder no longer hid his mental energy origin after his body was injured. Immediately, the elemental energy in his body roared out crazily and directly condensed into a huge figure behind him. When this figure appeared, it was immediately accompanied by a wild wave of elemental energy. Boom! Li Zongjio had nowhere to hide when this move landed. With a furious roar, the golden dragon's yuan spirit directly entangled the second elder's body, and the huge dragon entangled the sparrow god palace. The entanglement between the two of them was even more chaotic. You can actually use the dragon clan as your yuan spirit. You have killed the dragon clan? The second elder was obviously quite shocked. He could not believe that Li Zongjio had actually killed the dragon clan. Otherwise, how could the yuan spirit power appear? Even if it was innate, it could not be produced. However, Li Zongjio did not reply to the second elder's nonsense. This was a life-and-death battle. Then, Li Zongjio released the blood dragon yuan spirit again. Black Dragon Hammer. The black dragon hammer roared. Li Zongjio violently swung it forward. The black dragon hammer was first blocked by a golden light. The second elder was entangled by the 3 yuan spirits of the dragon clan. There was also a white dragon yuan spirit that directly trapped the second elder's mental energy. When the second elder saw that the black dragon hammer dared to attack the divine hall of Sparrow God Palace, he sneered. You want to destroy my divine hall of Sparrow God Palace? Do you think you are strong enough? In the next instant, an ominous glint suddenly erupted from the black dragon hammer. As this glint rapidly surged out, a black dragon also appeared. The black dragon yuan spirit was many times stronger than the 3 yuan spirits combined. Unknowingly, it had almost recovered to its peak state. Therefore, when this power emerged, even Li Zongjio was surprised. It seemed that the black dragon yuan spirit had been tempered very well by the black dragon hammer. He had to find an opportunity to put the other 3 yuan spirits into the black dragon hammer. Boom! The black dragon appeared and slammed down with its claws. Immediately, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Even the pool beside him was stirred up by the impact, creating waves that were thousands of feet high. Ice Sparrow, who was watching the battle from the side, was also forced back by this attack. From this, it could be seen how powerful this attack was. After the black dragon yuan spirit appeared, it directly destroyed one of the 3 divine halls of Sparrow God Palace. Boom! When the building was smashed to smithereens, they could clearly feel the second elder's rage skyrocketing. Li Zongjio, the people of Sparrow God Palace will definitely make you die a horrible death. We will turn you into ashes. We will crush your bones and scatter your ashes. The second elder was so angry that he blurted out a few idioms to express his anger. However, Li Zongjio had heard such harsh words many times. Oh, you are very stubborn. Then I will destroy another one. Li Zongjio's lips curled into a sinister smile. When it came to fighting, Li Zongjio had never lost. It was just a matter of who would die first. Li Zongjio immediately summoned the black dragon yuan spirit and flew towards another divine hall. The second elder was enraged. However, the power of the 3 yuan spirits that trapped him was quite strong. It was difficult for him to break free. At the same time, Li Zongjio brandished the unparalleled sword. A shocking sword aura flew out from the unparalleled sword and slashed towards the second elder. Boom! The sword aura swept across. The second elder could only force out a yuan spirit to defend himself. Thousand Sparrow armor. Boom! The unparalleled sword aura was blocked, but there were a few more cracks on the Thousand Sparrow armor. Just as Li Zongjio was about to continue his attack, the Sparrow God Palace in front of him shook violently. The black dragon yuan spirit, who was about to attack, was hit by a 5-colored ray of light. Bang! The black dragon yuan spirit returned to the black dragon hammer. Then, the black dragon hammer was sent flying by the force. Bang! The direction in which the hammer was flying from just happened to be smashing towards Li Zongjio's head. He took advantage of the momentum and sent the black dragon hammer flying. Another supreme martial artist had come to attack. You have angered the Sparrow God Palace. Li Zongjio, the Sparrow God Palace will be irreconcilable with you. You will never see Qi Yanran again. The voice seemed to come from a more distant world. It came over layer by layer. At the same time, Li Zongjio raised his head and saw a heavy ancient bell. It was filled with an ancient aura. Suddenly, it fell from the sky and fell towards Li Zongjio. This bell? Li Zongjio clearly felt that the power around him was sealed. It was difficult for him to escape. The bell fell to the ground, instantly suppressing Li Zongjio. Boom! Dong! The heavy sound almost shook the sound waves to tens of millions of miles away. The whole untainted land could hear the sound of the bell. All the cultivators could clearly feel their souls being violently shaken. Chapter 1281. Boom! Li Zongjio was trapped under the giant bell. Li Zongjio recognized the cauldron bell just now. It was the legendary chaotic origin bell. Li Zongjio had only heard about the power of the chaotic origin bell in his previous life. He had never seen it for himself. After all, there were too many unknown things in the field of power. Li Zongjio couldn't try everything. Moreover, although Li Zongjio had reached the peak in his previous life, it was only during that period, a period that belonged to him. Whether it was before or after, there might be people whose strength surpassed Li Zongjio, and some unimaginably powerful existences would appear. The chaotic origin bell was one of them. Li Zongjio was trapped in it. The chaotic origin bell was a world of its own. If no one opened the door to lead the way, one would be trapped in the chaotic origin bell forever. Even with Li Zongjio's current cultivation, it was very difficult for him to open it. The primordious bell fell to the ground. This was a very large lump of iron. The figure of the Great Elder emerged from the primordious bell. Given the power of the chaotic Yuan bell, even the Great Elder of Sparrow Divine Palace would have to use all his strength to unleash the chaotic Yuan bell. Senior sister, why are you doing this? Could it be that with our strength, it's still not enough to kill him? Why do you have to pay such a huge price to trap him in the chaotic origin bell? The second elder was puzzled. That child's strength is extraordinary. Even if the two of us were to join hands and kill him, we would not be able to stop him if he wanted to escape. The first elder let out a deep sigh. He had never thought that there would be such a powerful person in this place. He was so difficult to deal with. This man has 4 dragon souls. He must have a terrifying background. The first elder's eyes were also filled with surprise. Obviously, he was very surprised by Li Zongjio's cultivation and good fortune. Looking at the Sparrow Divine Palace, one of the palaces had actually been torn down after the two of them had joined hands. This Li Zongjio was actually a man of his word. Li Zongjio deserves to die for destroying the palace of Sparrow God Palace that has existed for 100,000 years. The second elder couldn't wait to grind Li Zongjio's bones to dust. But now he was trapped inside the primordial bell. The people inside couldn't come out, and the people outside couldn't go in. He will be honest after being locked up for 100 years. During this time, Qi Yanran can also accept this reality. Moreover, in the primordial bell, he can't open his domain. Naturally, the safety of third junior sister will not be affected. The eldest senior sister was indeed the eldest senior sister. She had considered everything before making a move. Wait, where's the ice sparrow? Just as the two of them were discussing how to deal with Li Zongjio, a new situation occurred. In the blink of an eye, they discovered that the ice sparrow had disappeared. Most importantly, the ice sparrow had gone missing. The great elder immediately recalled carefully and quickly came to a realization. Oh no, the ice sparrow has been brought into the primordial bell by Li Zongjio. The great elder's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. Li Zongjio was indeed difficult to deal with. He had actually taken the ice sparrow hostage before she had been captured. Before Qi Yanran had appeared, the ice sparrow had been carefully cultivated as a successor with an extremely noble bloodline. However, her talent was still inferior to Qi Yanran's, so she hadn't been able to come into contact with the true inheritance of the ancestral sparrow. However, the ice sparrow herself was the next sect master of Sparrow Divine Palace. How could she have been abducted by Li Zongjio? This was unbelievable. Where had Li Zongjio cultivated his reaction speed? It was so fast that it was unexpected. No one could imagine how Li Zongjio's strength had reached such a high level. He was simply a freak. Now, he had even taken the ice sparrow hostage. It was hard to say whether Li Zongjio would do anything excessive. However, it was too late now. If they rashly opened the primordial bell, they wouldn't be able to bring the ice sparrow out. The situation in front of them was extremely awkward. It was difficult to make a choice. If this brat dares to hurt the ice sparrow, I will definitely make him pay a painful price. When Li Zongjio was mentioned, this second elder had always been in a state of gnashing his teeth in hatred. He wanted to kill Li Zongjio, but it seemed that he didn't have the strength to do so. If the great senior sister could fully control the primordial bell, it wouldn't be difficult to destroy Li Zongjio. However, the problem was that it wasn't easy to control the primordial bell. It had been hundreds of years since the primordial bell fell into the hands of the Sparrow Divine Palace. However, they only had the most rudimentary control over it. They could only use it to trap people. When I further comprehend the mystery of the primordial bell, I will be able to comprehend the killing array. When that time comes, Li Zongjio won't be able to escape even if he has wings. I can only let the ice sparrow stay in the primordial bell. If anything happens to the ice sparrow, I won't let him off easily. After talking for a long time. However, there was no other way to deal with Li Zongjio. The only way now was to wait for Qi Yanran to completely forget about Li Zongjio after 100 years. At that time, Qi Yanran should have completed the comprehension of the inheritance. It was obvious that people like Li Zongjio and Qi Yanran didn't belong to the same world. The fate between the two of them would naturally come to an end. They didn't even need to intervene. Based on the current situation, it would be extremely difficult to stop the two of them. Li Zongjio, who was trapped in the primordial bell, naturally couldn't escape. Even if Li Zongjio was given hundreds or thousands of years, he wouldn't be able to get out of the primordial bell so easily. If one had to describe how difficult it was to get out of the primordial bell, it would be like this. For example, if a God-grade array was superimposed with another God-grade array, the difficulty of breaking the array would be 10 times that of unraveling a single God-grade array. The superimposition of 3 God-grade arrays would be 100 times more difficult. Being trapped in the primordial bell was equivalent to being trapped in a chain of 10 God-grade arrays. Unless the Great Elder took the initiative to release Li Zongjio wouldn't be able to get out for the rest of his life. Of course, this was only the Great Elder of Sparrow Divine Palace's understanding. However, this wasn't the case for Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio landed on the ground. The ground under his feet was no different from the ground in the untainted land. It had the same texture. However, this was no longer the untainted land. It was the world of the primordial bell. Just like Li Zongjio's infernal world, it was an independent state. He tried to open his own fiery hell but found that it was restricted. This was because the world in the primordial bell was in an imperfect state. It was impossible to open the door to another world in an imperfect world. In that case, the original world would collapse. Once it collapsed, Li Zongjio didn't know where it would go. He didn't know either. Plop. Another sound was heard. Bing Ke looked around in surprise. She didn't expect that she would be caught by Li Zongjio into the world of the primordial bell. Why do you want to involve me? The ice sparrow looked at the surrounding environment and immediately became quite angry and furious. This Li Zongjio was really too much. Not only did he get caught, but now he even dragged her down with him. What kind of person was he? You can also see how important you are in the hearts of these old things. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he directly sat cross-legged and began to meditate. During this process, he also took the opportunity to recuperate from the battle just now. How dare you recover in front of me? Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Bing Ke said coldly. However, Li Zongjio didn't answer her at all. She raised her sword and finally put it down helplessly. She had been cultivating for more than 300 years. However, she hadn't killed a single fish in these 300 years. How could it be possible to kill a person rashly? Chapter 1282. The ice sparrow didn't fight, so she didn't need to recover. She had long heard that the Great Elder had a treasure in her hand. But she never thought that this magic weapon would be so powerful. What was even more unexpected was that she was actually trapped in this magic weapon by the Great Elder. It was obviously impossible to break free from this magic weapon, so the ice sparrow simply strolled around here. The landscape was not bad. However, the range of this mountain was only a mere 10 miles wide. Outside of 10 miles, it was occupied by a chaotic force. If one wanted to get close to this chaotic force, they would immediately be deterred by its power. There was even a feeling of destruction coming, which made the ice sparrow vigilant. If she was caught in this chaotic force, she would be instantly strangled. Other than that, there was no other movement. There weren't even any creatures nearby. It wasn't a barren land, but there was no vitality. The sky seemed calm, but if one soared into the sky, they would still encounter these chaotic barriers at a certain height. The slightest carelessness would cause them to be caught in this chaotic force. Therefore, the surrounding situation was quite dangerous for them. After wandering around, the ice sparrow returned to Li Zongjio. Now that she was trapped in such a place, the only creature who could speak was Li Zongjio. And the one who brought her in was this damn Li Zongjio. Of course, she had to rely on him. "It's all your fault. How can we get out in such a place?" The ice sparrow was simply aggrieved. Li Zongjio opened his eyes. At this moment, his state had been adjusted to the peak. After all, with the elixir in hand, recovering this bit of consumption was naturally not a problem. What a big deal. The Chaos Bell is a world of its own. Unless one can master the power of the Chaos Bell, they can't get out. In my opinion, your great elder has only mastered the power of the Chaos Bell. In other words, even if she wants to let people out, she doesn't know how to do it. Li Zongjio shook his head and said, it was a bit too much for him to show off in front of an expert with such half-baked skills. However, it was worth mentioning that Li Zongjio had a chance. Not only could he refine the primordial bell from the outside, but he could also refine it even if he was inside the primordial bell. Among them, the chaotic force was an extremely important force. What are you talking about? Where are you going? Ice Sparrow saw Li Zongjio get up and walk towards the edge of the world. The Ice Sparrow naturally followed Li Zongjio's footsteps. When she saw Li Zongjio land here, she was slightly surprised. She didn't understand why Li Zongjio would come to such a place. It's dangerous here. The chaotic force here is enough to crush you to pieces. The Ice Sparrow didn't know what was wrong with Li Zongjio. He actually took the initiative to walk towards the edge of the world. If he rashly approached the chaotic force, he wouldn't be able to withstand the destruction of the chaotic force no matter how strong his cultivation was. How is it possible to control the primordial bell without coming into contact with the chaotic force? How can one control power if one is so afraid of death? In fact, Li Zongjio had enough time to escape from the primordial bell back then. If one wanted to trap Li Zongjio at all costs, even if one had the primordial bell, one might not be able to succeed. However, Li Zongjio had some understanding of the primordial bell. At the same time, he really wanted to obtain the primordial bell. However, he hadn't been able to find the primordial bell's whereabouts after searching the mountains and rivers. Although this action was risky, it was worth a try. Therefore, Li Zongjio allowed the great elder of Sparrow Divine Palace to take him into the primordial bell. He wanted to properly absorb the chaotic force. It was impossible to find the chaotic force outside the primordial bell. Are you courting death? You will die. Come out quickly. The Ice Sparrow exclaimed when she saw Li Zongjio walking towards the edge of the primordial bell. Obviously, she didn't understand Li Zongjio's actions. However, Li Zongjio didn't care at all when his palm came into contact with the violent chaotic force. His palm was directly destroyed by the chaotic force. Boom! Li Zongjio's skin and flesh were completely destroyed in an instant. Only his bones, which were protected by the golden dragon true spirit, were left intact. Amazing! Li Zongjio took back his hand and placed it in front of his body. Looking at his completely destroyed palm with only white bones left, the Ice Sparrow was so frightened that she covered her eyes. Such a cruel cultivation method was not cultivation at all. It was self-mutilation, seeking one's own death, and asking for trouble. Do you want to die? Go to the side and play. Li Zongjio urged his Yuan Li to restore his palm. Then, he propped up his Yuan Li and directly rushed into the chaotic force. The Ice Sparrow exclaimed. This was tantamount to suicide. Why would Li Zongjio do this? Could it be that he knew that he would never be able to get out if he was trapped in the primordial bell? So, he used this method to end his own suffering. It was really stupid. Li Zongjio, why are you doing this? As long as you surrender and admit defeat to the elders will be magnanimous and forgive you. The ice sparrow murmured. But no matter what, Li Zongjio had directly drilled his head into the primordial bell. It was too late to say anything. There was no way to bring him back. Even if the ice sparrow rushed in, her end would be the same. She might even die faster than Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's figure instantly disappeared into the boundless chaotic energy that filled the sky. The ice sparrow also stayed in place. She didn't believe that Li Zongjio was such a suicidal person. He must be doing something special, so he directly rushed in. Maybe he could still come out. However, even the ice sparrow didn't believe this. Being drawn into such a place with so much chaotic force, even if a venerable expert came, his end would be the same. It was impossible to come out alive. It would only take a few seconds for his body to be smashed into pieces. A good young man committing suicide for love was really not worth it. The ice sparrow thought helplessly in her heart. This was the only thing she could do. She couldn't help much. If she was lucky, Li Zongjio could still leave behind some relics. The ice sparrow could help to clean up. However, at this moment, Li Zongjio wasn't as miserable as the ice sparrow thought. When Li Zongjio drilled in, his own strength also suffered a strong impact. However, Li Zongjio also operated his own cultivation method to the extreme. All the major cultivation methods were activated in his body. He even directly used the chaotic force to open a new hell in an instant. Chaotic Hell. Chapter 1283. The Chaotic Hell. It was exactly because of the omnidirectional hell that Li Zongjio was able to last so long in the boundless chaotic force. Interesting. Li Zongjio's surroundings surged with golden light. He immediately sensed the appearance of the power as he sat there. The great destructive force directly passed through Li Zongjio's body, but Li Zongjio's body was constantly recovering at the same time. Every time he recovered, a sliver of chaotic force would appear in Li Zongjio's body. In the end, the chaotic force would turn into chaotic force and fuse with Li Zongjio's body. He used such an extremely primitive method to refine his own chaotic body. The chaotic body. Using such a primitive method was extremely cruel. First of all, the cultivator had to experience the pain of reconstructing their body countless times. It was not something that anyone could endure. At the same time, they had to ensure that they did not die so easily as their body was constantly being reconstructed. If they died by accident, there would be no future. Only Li Zongjio was confident in that. He continued to cultivate in the chaos, using his own cultivation method to store the boundless chaos force into his own hell of chaos. The chaotic hell was of the same attribute as the chaotic force, so they were connected. Amidst this endless tempering, Lin Fan did not know how much time had passed. Bing Ke was also waiting for Li Zongjio to appear in the outside world. However, it seemed like Li Zongjio had really died in the chaos. Nothing unexpected happened. Ice Sparrow also tried to cultivate beside the primordial chaos. The surrounding desolation and boredom also made the Ice Sparrow feel numb. How long has it been? There's no indication of time here. Ice Sparrow couldn't help but think in her heart. She couldn't feel the passage of time, but judging from the degree of hunger in her stomach, at least 6 months had passed. It had been half a year. She had been trapped here for half a year. If the Great Elder and the others were going to imprison Li Zongjio for over 100 years, she would have to stay here for over 100 years. She would still have to wait for an extremely long time. At least, it was impossible for her to get out right now. Compared to Bing Ke's wait, this was still considered good. At least the surrounding environment was rather comfortable. The third elder of the Sparrow God Palace, who was trapped inside the soul-burning formation, could feel the endless pain of being burned. Even the heavens couldn't respond to his cries. He had to endure the pain of being burned all the time. He had never thought that he would be reduced to such a state one day. On this day, the Ice Sparrow was also cultivating at the edge of the chaotic chi. As she was cultivating at the edge of the chaotic chi, the Ice Sparrow could feel her cultivation advancing by leaps and bounds. Although it was a little dangerous, the effect was not bad. However, during the process of cultivation, The ice sparrow suddenly opened her eyes and opened her mouth wide. Oh my God! The ice sparrow sat on the spot, not daring to move in the slightest. It turned out that during the cultivation process earlier, for some reason, the surrounding chaotic force had suddenly formed a tornado. At this moment, the ice sparrow was right in the middle of the tornado formed by the chaotic force. How could this be? The current situation could be said to be quite critical. Bing K was at a loss. How could this be? At that moment, the ice sparrow was trapped in the primal chaos energy and was unable to escape. However, something even more frightening occurred. The primal chaos tornado was rapidly shrinking. At this moment, it had already shrunk to a rather narrow range. If this continued, the ice sparrow would be smashed to pieces and buried in the chaos. Rumble. At this critical moment, a figure suddenly walked out of the chaotic energy. The appearance of this figure made the ice sparrow involuntarily rub her eyes. Let's go! Li Zongjio, who was covered in chaotic chi, directly grabbed Bing K's hand, then stretched out his palm and slashed forward. Immediately, the primal chaos force turned into a wave of energy and scattered to the sides. A path was forcibly opened up. Then, Li Zongjio walked out with Bing Quebec. The ice sparrow didn't believe that Li Zongjio was still alive. From the looks of it, he seemed to be able to move freely in the chaotic force. If he was still alive after half a year, he must have undergone a qualitative transformation. The two of them escaped from the chaotic chi. Bing K heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the clear sky again. If it were not for Li Zongjio, she would have died in there. How did you do it? Bing K reacted and looked at the man beside her who was in an extremely turbid state. She was quite shocked. At the same time, she looked at Li Zongjio in disbelief. Phew! How long did it take me? Li Zongjio took a deep breath and adjusted his body's condition. At this moment, the color of his body that was constantly changing also gradually faded. In the end, Li Zongjio's body also returned to its normal state. However, because everything in the chaotic chi was broken into pieces, Bing K exclaimed when she saw Li Zongjio's state. She covered her eyes and turned around. About half a year, Bing K said shyly. Li Zongjio looked at Bing K, who was making a fuss about nothing. She was already so old. Was there a need to be so shy? Then he slowly took out a set of clothes from his storage ring and put them on. Li Zongjio had hundreds of similar sets of clothes stored in his storage ring. They were all of the best quality and the most exquisite embroidery. However, on the surface, they were quite low-key. It's already been half a year. It's time to go out and settle accounts with those two old things. A cold glint flashed across Li Zongjio's eyes. Li Zongjio wasn't going to let go of the grudge of using the primordial Yuan Bell to trap him here. Although Li Zongjio's cultivation had not broken through in the past 6 months, and he still maintained his original state, his body had undergone a qualitative transformation. Li Zongjio's body had been forcefully transformed into the chaotic body. After staying in the primal chaos chi for such a long period of time, his body was continuously being destroyed and reshaped. Other than the pain he experienced every day and night, his body had also undergone a great transformation. The chaotic body. Li Zongjio's chaotic body was not very complete. However, at the very least, Li Zongjio's body contained a strand of chaotic chi. Although the surrounding chaos storm seemed endless, the truth was that there were only 3 strands of chaos chi in the entire primordial bell. Even after spending so much time, Li Zongjio had only managed to refine a single strand. If he could control the 3 strands of chaotic chi, he would truly be able to control the chaos bell. However, it seemed like the Grand Elder of Sparrow Divine Palace had not even grasped half of the chaos bell's essence. As a result, Li Zongjio had already seized control of the chaos bell. We are trapped here. If the Grand Elder refuses to let us out, we definitely won't be able to get out. Bing K heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Li Zongjio put on his clothes again. Bing K had been extremely nervous earlier. How could this person be so shameless? Can't get out? Do you think I've been slacking for the past 6 months? Li Zongjio squatted down, as if he was grabbing onto an edge and lifting it up with all his might. Rumble. The entire world within the chaos bell began to tilt. It was as if the entire world had been moved. At the same time, a ray of light appeared in front of them. Bing Ke quickly sensed the aura from the light. It was the aura of Sparrow Divine Palace. "What are you waiting for? Let's go," Li Zongjio said. Then the two of them rushed out. When Bing Ke and Li Zongjio returned to Sparrow Divine Palace, they realized that the chaos bell had appeared out of thin air. Rumble. As the two of them landed, the chaotic yuan bell also fell to the ground. However, the scene in front of them shocked both Ice Sparrow and Li Zongjio. Chapter 1284. How could this be? Li Zongjio tried his best to recall. Back then, I only demolished one. If he remembered correctly, Li Zongjio had indeed only demolished one palace. The Sparrow Divine Palace was made up of 3 palaces. How could it have ended up like this? This is impossible. Bing Ke also exclaimed, her eyes filled with disbelief. At this moment, the Sparrow Divine Palace was in ruins. The majestic palace and even the surrounding array were completely destroyed. The divine might from before was also completely destroyed at this moment. Be careful, these people have left traps. Li Zongjio directly reached out and stopped Bing Ke, who wanted to rush forward. Although it was already a ruin, it was obvious that these people still had some tricks up their sleeves. Where are the elders? And Yenren, they're all gone. The Ice Sparrow panicked as she looked at the ruins of the Sparrow God Palace. This was the place where she had cultivated for nearly 300 years. From the beginning, the Ice Sparrow seemed to have been adopted by the 3 elders. She had never been to any other place. Li Zongjio immediately reached out his hand and waved. He directly captured the original aura of this place. However, when these people took action, they cleaned up the aura completely. Interesting, they're all veterans. Li Zongjio's eyes shone with a cold light. They didn't leave any traces in the original environment. It could be said that they did it quite cleanly. However, they were able to destroy a god-level formation and even kill 2 sovereigns. There weren't many people who could do this. Will the elders be okay? It seems that you don't know anything. Li Zongjio shook his head. Bing Ke looked like a fool who didn't know anything. He reached out his hand and released the soul-burning formation. The soul-burning formation fell to the ground. At the same time, Li Zongjio also removed the soul-burning formation. The 3rd elder immediately escaped from the terrifying soul-burning formation. After nearly half a year of crazy refining, the 3rd elder had a belly full of anger. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to kill Li Zongjio, not many people would have been able to hold on until now. Li Zongjio, I'll destroy you. The 3rd elder shouted angrily after he appeared. He couldn't wait to kill Li Zongjio. However, he saw Li Zongjio standing with his hands behind his back and a cold smile on his face. The 3rd elder was a little surprised. What was this guy trying to do? 3rd elder, the divine palace is gone, the Ice Sparrow said in a daze. When she saw the 3rd elder appear, she hurriedly complained to her elder. The 3rd elder turned around abruptly and discovered that the original Sparrow God Palace had been reduced to ruins. In just half a year, such a huge change had occurred. How could this be? Who did this? Was it you? The 3rd elder roared angrily. At the same time, he stared at Li Zongjio with bloodshot eyes. Only Li Zongjio would do such a thing to the divine palace. However, Li Zongjio couldn't have done such a thing with his strength. Li Zongjio wasn't strong enough to do so. However, the 3rd elder's mind was clouded by anger and hatred. In addition, Li Zongjio was an enemy of Sparrow God Palace, so it was only natural for him to point his sword at Li Zongjio. Idiot! Li Zongjio glanced at the 3rd elder. Did this old man become so brainless after he got older? He didn't even think before he spoke. How could he say something so brainless? I'll destroy you. 3rd elder circulated his yuan power. Due to his anger, he released all of his yuan power and directly activated it to its largest scale. Immediately, a wild wave was stirred up in the surrounding energy. With such a turbulent movement, the heaven-earth yuan qi within a radius of 10,000 feet seemed to be mobilized by the 3rd elder, gathering together with such a terrifying aura. Annihilation of the divine sparrow. A burning palm suddenly descended from the sky and blasted towards Li Zongjio. Idiot! This move was indeed powerful, but Li Zongjio didn't want to go head-to-head with her. Even if he did, he might not lose in the current situation. Li Zongjio wasn't a fool to waste his energy. With a wave of his hand, he summoned the primordial bell that had fallen to the side. When the chaotic Yuan bell responded to Li Zongjio's summon, the third elder was shocked. It was clearly his senior sister's chaotic Yuan bell. Why would it appear in Li Zongjio's hands? It was actually in Li Zongjio's hands. Boom! Before the third elder could fully comprehend what was happening, the chaotic Yuan bell that came crashing down enveloped him. The attack that he had painstakingly formed had also vanished at this moment. Bang! The third elder was directly sealed by Li Zongjio's chaotic Yuan bell. You hurry up and release the third elder. When Bing Ke saw this, she felt a considerable headache. What was happening all day long? Each one was more ridiculous than the last. Let her calm down first. Li Zongjio said indifferently. You wait here for me. After Li Zongjio finished speaking, he directly jumped into the ruins of the Sparrow God Palace. From the surrounding traces, it was obvious that the Sparrow God Palace was destroyed in an instant. The person who came was so powerful that it was unprecedented. No matter how hard Li Zongjio tried to recall, he couldn't find anyone who could do this. However, after seeing the Sparrow God Palace, Li Zongjio also knew that there were actually many secrets hidden in the Eldritch Land that he didn't understand in his previous life. It seemed that Li Zongjio in his previous life was still a little lacking. Didn't I tell you to stay where you are? Bing Ke's figure landed directly beside Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio also glanced at her and ignored her. Anyway, this Bing Ke didn't seem to be very bright. It was fine as long as she didn't ruin his plans. Even if the four supremes of the Dragon Clan attacked at the same time, they might not be able to create such a situation. They destroyed the Sparrow Divine Palace in an instant. The intruders are not simple. Your two elders have either escaped or been captured by them. Li Zongjio said. Could it be that they came for Yenran? At this moment, Li Zongjio was most worried about Qi Yenran's situation. Junior sister is cultivating in seclusion in the Flying Bird platform. If the three elders don't cultivate at the same time, she won't be able to appear unless she can fully understand the inheritance and inherit the power of the ancestors of the Sparrow God Palace. Flying Bird platform? This was the first time Li Zongjio had heard of this. So these people had trapped Yenran in such a place and forced her to accept their inheritance. Yes, according to the elders, the Flying Bird platform is a primitive ultimate treasure from the Eldritch Wilderness. Unless someone is strong enough to destroy the entire Eldritch Wilderness, only the three elders working together can activate the Flying Bird platform. Bing Ke said, Nonsense. What primitive ultimate treasure? I've never heard of it. Li Zongjio said disdainfully. Ordinary people might have been intimidated by such words, but Li Zongjio was someone who had dominated the Eldritch Wilderness in his previous life. Therefore, such things naturally didn't scare Li Zongjio. It's true. These primitive ultimate treasures have nothing to do with you humans. Before the human race was born, the primordial beasts had already ruled the Eldritch Wilderness. You came later. The first three primordial beasts refined the primitive ultimate treasures. Bing Ke said stubbornly. Although Bing Ke looked like a young woman in her 30s, her heart was as pure and stubborn as a child's. In fact, a 300-year-old primordial beast was just a teenage girl among humans. Chapter 1285. Li Zongjio indeed did not know about this. They even managed to get their hands on 3 ancient treasures. Then what are the other 2? Li Zongjio asked with a frown. One of them was the Flying Bird platform of the Sparrow Divine Palace. Since the other party had snatched it away, it meant that they knew about its existence. It seemed like the other 2 clans had done it. They must have something to do with it. The other one is the Dragon Island Immortal Palace of the Dragon Clan. As for the other one, I'm not sure either. However, I only know from the inherited memories that they are called the Heavenly Monster Clan. Bing Ke said, Heavenly Monster Clan. Li Zongjio had never heard of this name before. Not to mention he had never met them before. To think that he would encounter such a weird situation. There were indeed many ancient secrets here. Heavenly Monster Clan? Don't let me catch you guys. Li Zongjio could not help but curse. Clearly, he could guess that the Heavenly Monster Clan was the culprit. Seems like their goal is to snatch the flying bird platform. What did you just say? Dragon Island Immortal Palace? You're saying that the entire Dragon Island is actually an ancient treasure. Li Zongjio really didn't know about this. No wonder he couldn't figure it out before. How can this Dragon Island be suspended in the sky? Moreover, it's in a state of floating in the void. This is a bit too much. At that time, Li Zongjio also didn't know that these people had this kind of ability. He only thought that it was their old ancestor who created this Dragon Island. Now he finally understood it was actually a magic treasure. Seems like the old ancestors of the Dragon Clan are quite powerful to be able to do this. Since the flying bird platform and the Dragon Island are of the same level, there shouldn't be any problems. Li Zongjio thought to himself. Should we let the third elder out first? Bing Ke said softly. Although Li Zongjio was always in a fierce state, Bing Ke could feel that Li Zongjio wasn't a bad person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rescued her. Although he kidnapped her, he didn't do anything to her. If it wasn't for Li Zongjio, Ice Sparrow would have died long ago. So, Li Zongjio didn't hesitate and released the third elder of Sparrow God Palace. The third elder inside the primordial bell also calmed down. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that if it was really Li Zongjio who did this, then there was naturally no need for him to release her. He could have just locked her inside the array formation. If it was really Li Zongjio who did it, it was equivalent to directly rescuing Qi Yanran now. There was no need to keep her alive. Did he have to wait for her to come out and take revenge? He did not have such a bad taste. How could this be? Our Sparrow God Palace's tens of thousands of years of inheritance has been destroyed today. The third elder stood on the ruins in a daze. Bing Ke quickly came to the third elder to comfort him. At this moment, the third elder was very calm. He didn't continue to fight with Li Zongjio, mainly because he couldn't win at all. Instead of being sad here, it's better to find the enemy quickly. Tell me, who took Yanran away? Li Zongjio said coldly. He mercilessly interrupted the third elder who was in melancholy. This was a waste of time. Either pack up quickly and take revenge, or die quickly if he felt that he didn't have the strength to take revenge. The third elder of Sparrow God Palace was not an ordinary person. He quickly came to his senses. Now was not the time to be sad. He must find the person. Although Sparrow God Palace was destroyed, she was still alive. He must rebuild Sparrow God Palace. What do you want to know? The third elder turned around and looked at Li Zongjio. Just now, the Ice Sparrow also told him everything that happened after she was locked in the soul-burning array. The process was very simple. After all, it didn't take long for her to be locked in the primordial bell. They naturally didn't know what happened after that. Li Zongjio also lost Qi Yanran's whereabouts. Now, both sides were on the same side. Moreover, Li Zongjio used some unknown method to directly control the chaotic bell. The chaotic bell was extremely powerful. Even if one wanted to control it, it wouldn't be so easy. It should be known that the great elder of their oceanic world had been studying it for hundreds of years, but she had only reached the current level. It was not as good as what Li Zongjio had mastered in just half a year. This was something that the third elder admired. Everything. Li Zongjio said. How could he find his enemy if he didn't know the cause and effect? The third elder took a deep breath and explained everything that had happened. Of course, some of it was information that the third elder knew. There were also many things that the third elder had no way of coming into contact with at his current level. In short, the heavenly demon tribe wanted to gather the 3 primitive cardinal treasures so that they could control the entire primitive demon realm. The name of the primitive demon realm was actually the primitive demon realm. Of course, this only represented a part of the primitive demon realm. In fact, the primitive demon realm was even bigger. A part of it had always belonged to the primitive demon realm. That was why there were so many experts of the Yuan Beast clan here. In the beginning, the 3 primordial beast clans had directly pacified the 4 realms. The prehistoric demon realm had almost been pacified by the three demon clans. It was supposed to be a three-way division of the world. However, some things happened later. For example, the Heavenly Sparrow clan had fallen to such a state. They were no longer worthy of guarding the so-called primitive cardinal treasures. As for the person who had attacked, it was most likely the Heavenly Demon tribe, the Heavenly Dragon clan and the Heavenly Sparrow clan. They each had their own talents. However, the third clan called the Heavenly Demon tribe had the talents of both clans. Although their numbers had always been extremely small, their strength was extremely tyrannical. Originally, they had disappeared for a long time. Now they had actually made a comeback. Something must have happened. That was why such a situation had occurred. The Sparrow Divine Palace isn't strong enough to deal with the Heavenly Demon tribe. We can only protect ourselves. However, it seems like we can't even protect ourselves. The third elder let out a long sigh. She didn't know how her two senior sisters were doing, but they couldn't open the Flying Bird Dao platform. Protect ourselves? Haha, you guys were supposed to be dead. However, these guys have provoked someone they shouldn't have. Li Zongjio's eyes were overflowing with coldness. These people were really bold to dare to provoke Li Zongjio. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had cultivated for 3,000 years and had never heard of the Heavenly Demon tribe. Obviously, the Heavenly Demon tribe hadn't done much these days. Otherwise, they wouldn't have escaped Li Zongjio's eyes. No matter what the Heavenly Demon tribe was, Li Zongjio wouldn't let them off so easily. He had to rip their heads off. The two people from the Sparrow Divine Palace looked at Li Zongjio in shock. They hadn't expected Li Zongjio to have the guts to confront the Heavenly Demon tribe. Even the Sparrow Divine Palace had suffered a crushing defeat. How could they succeed? Don't worry. Your two senior sisters are definitely not dead. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Why? The third elder asked in surprise. It would be best if they weren't dead. However, how could Li Zongjio be so sure? Didn't you say that the Flying Bird Dao platform requires the three of you to work together to open it? If we kill the two of them, how are we going to open it? These people hadn't even thought of such a simple logic. As long as we spread the news that you're still alive, these people will definitely come knocking on our door. Li Zongjio had already thought of a solution. Since the Heavenly Demon tribe wanted the Flying Bird Dao platform, he might as well beat them at their own game. Fortunately, he had caught one of them. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how to proceed. No, how can we let the elder take the risk? Bing Ke said hurriedly. Obviously, she didn't want her elder to take the risk. Li Zongjio was so evil that he wanted to use the elder as bait. This is a good plan. However, even if we find them, we're no match for them. Even the third elder, who was a venerable expert, admitted defeat. It was obvious that the Heavenly Demon tribe's strength wasn't so simple. Just because you're no match for them doesn't mean that I'm no match for them. The two of you, come with me, Li Zongjio said directly. There was no need for them to stay in this place any longer. However, they had to find a place to spread the news. Li Zongjio immediately thought of a place. This was the only place they could go. Chapter 1286. The Sky Suspension Mountain belonged to Do Ling Er's family. After all, only Do Ling Er's family existed in the core area of the untainted land. Li Zongjio did not know the rest, so he could only go to Do Ling Er's family. Fortunately, Li Zongjio knew Do Ling. Otherwise, the Do Ling Er's family would not end well. Li Zongjio was in a hurry to get things done, so he would not be too gentle. If anyone disagreed, he would kill half of their family members. And so on and so forth. Then these people would know what to do. No matter how stubborn they were, they would not dare to stand out at this time. The smartest thing to do was to admit defeat. The third elder had no other place to go. The only reason he followed Li Zongjio was that Li Zongjio had another treasure of the Sparrow Divine Palace. The chaotic bell was in his hands, so of course he had to follow Li Zongjio. After all, he would get the chaotic bell back sooner or later. Although Li Zongjio was not pleasing to the eye, at least Li Zongjio had the same purpose as them, which was to rescue Qi Yanran. After all, Qi Yanran was equally important to the Sparrow Divine Palace, so they could not give up on her. Therefore, the two of them could only follow Li Zongjio. As for Li Zongjio, Bing Ke did not care. It was up to him to come or not. However, if the third elder dared not to come, he would kidnap him. After all, those people would only come if the third elder was in his hands. In just half a year, such a thing had happened. If Li Zongjio had been present at that time, he would not have let such a thing happen. Fortunately, there were not many people in the Sparrow Divine Palace. Otherwise, it would have been a massacre. Fortunately, Bing Ke had been captured by Li Zongjio. Otherwise, she would have been dead by now. The three of them headed towards the Sky Suspending Mountain. The Du clan of the Sky Suspension Mountain. There was a relatively large formation set up outside the Du clan's territory. Once anyone approached it, it would immediately be alerted and discovered. After all, the untainted land was different from other places. Even an uninvited guest was likely to be a powerful threat. When the three of them arrived at the Du clan's territory, the Du clan's grand array naturally activated. Immediately, a few figures flew out from the forest below. All of them were supreme beings, but they were only first-grade supreme beings. To be able to be sent to guard the mountain gate, they all had a certain level of strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to live with their reputation. However, the four people in front of them combined might not even be enough to defeat one of Li Zongjio's trio. He could easily blast their heads into smithereens. They wouldn't be able to stop any one of them, so why did they have to jump out to stop them? Everyone please wait. This is the territory of the Du clan. Do you have an invitation letter? The person who rushed out was very polite. Although the combination of the three people in front of them was very strange, it was obvious that the three of them weren't people to be trifled with. Any one of them wasn't someone they could handle. That was how powerful they were. How could they not be careful and be polite? I'm here to look for Ling. Li Zongjio took out the guiding talisman that was given to him by that person. After all, this was Ling Er's home. Li Zongjio was polite and followed the rules. Otherwise, Li Zongjio would be sitting on the patriarch's throne. This is the guiding talisman from the third elder. Please come in. The two of you should quickly inform the third elder. Soon after, the leader smiled and led the way, bringing Li Zongjio and the other two in. Do Ling Er's third uncle also quickly received the notice. At first, the third elder was quite puzzled. How could his guiding talisman appear in someone else's hands? However, after thinking for a while, he remembered that half a year ago he gave it to a young boy who was rumored to be Ling Er's friend. At that time, he gave it to Ling Er out of respect. He didn't expect that the boy would really come looking for him today. What's this boy's name again? Oh right, he's Li Zongjio. After thinking for a long time, he finally remembered Li Zongjio's name. He must be trying to pester Ling. Wait for me to send him away. This is too outrageous. Obviously, the third elder of the Du clan, Du Tianhe, had a clear insight into Li Zongjio's intentions. This boy was obviously up to no good. Du Tianhe personally came to greet Li Zongjio. After all, Li Zongjio's potential was not bad. If there was a chance, it would be best to recruit him into the clan and serve the clan. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So it's you, Li Zongjio. I was wondering why there was the light of the flying swan in the sky today. Welcome, welcome. Du Tianhe smiled as he walked in. When he walked in, Du Tianhe immediately had a strong feeling that there was an extremely powerful expert in this guest hall. The level of this expert was far beyond his level. Therefore, Du Tianhe immediately felt an extremely strong pressure. Du Tianhe's expression changed instantly. He quickly scanned the three people in front of him. A beautiful woman, an old woman who was estimated to be in her 80s or 90s, and Li Zongjio. What kind of combination was this? It was hard for anyone to guess. You are? Li Zongjio did not know the name of the person in front of him, but he recognized the person's face. I am Ling Er's third uncle, Du Tianhe. You can call me Old He. Then, Du Tianhe looked at the disciples of the Du family who were waiting at the side and quickly scolded them. You fools, hurry up and pour the tea. Use the best spiritual tea. Du Tianhe scolded angrily. No need to trouble yourself. We don't drink outside tea. The third elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace waved his hand and said. He knocked the crutch in his hand. Who has the final say in your family? The third elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace said. Du Tianhe's expression stiffened when he heard this. He wanted to find the person who had the final say the moment he arrived. He was obviously here to negotiate. Could it be that he wanted to propose marriage? This brat acted really fast. He disappeared for half a year just to create this expert. He even brought out the elders of the clan. He actually used such a method. Hee, I am the third elder of the Du family. If there's anything, you can tell me directly. Our family head is now in seclusion. It's not convenient for him to meet guests. Not convenient. The third elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace's eyes suddenly became sharp. At this moment, a terrifying aura was released. Immediately, Du Tianhe felt suffocated. After all, the third elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace was a dignified honorable realm expert. There was a huge gap between them. Du Tianhe was instantly suppressed. However, Li Zongjio snorted coldly. Stop, this is my friend's house. Show some respect. Chapter 1287. Du Tianhe originally thought that these people were in cahoots, but Li Zongjio scolded the old lady, who seemed to have a stronger cultivation. This made Du Tianhe quite surprised and very confused. Could it be that these people in front of him were not in cahoots? Looking at this situation, it seemed that Li Zongjio was more powerful, and these people had to bow their heads in front of Li Zongjio. Thinking of this, he had an indescribable feeling. Moreover, in the current situation, even if the other party tried peaceful means before resorting to force, they had already shown their strength. If he did not know what was good for him and these people were really angry later, the consequences would be unimaginable. Du Tianhe himself did not expect Li Zongjio to have such strength. The old lady could force him to retreat with a scolding and make him feel a sense of despair, which made Du Tianhe quite shocked. His cultivation was at the 8th grade sovereign level. Now it seemed that the old lady in front of him was most likely a 9th grade sovereign, or even a stronger existence. Oh my God! Could this old lady be in the venerable realm? If so, wouldn't she be directly comparable to the strength of the Du family's patriarch? The Du family was able to establish a clan in the core area of the untainted land because of the existence of a venerable, and brought the entire Du family to the untainted land. Moreover, the protective barrier that was set up was more effective. Although it was said to be in the depths of the untainted land, it was much safer than the outside. As long as these family members did not go out to make trouble all day long, they were basically safe. There would not be any problems. Wait a moment, I'll go and ask the family head to come here. Du Tianhe understood the seriousness of this matter. If he did not quickly ask the person who could speak in the family to come here, he reckoned that the old lady would be angry and directly tear down the family base, and then directly escape. Even if he wanted to find the old lady, there was nothing he could do. There was no trace to be found. After leaving, Du Tianhe quickly came to the family head. The family head was Du Tianhe's father, and also Ling Er's grandfather. It just so happened that he was in a good mood today, so Du Su decided to try something he hadn't tried in a long time. He wanted to increase his strength, even though he hadn't made any progress in his cultivation for hundreds of years. However, Ling, this girl, spent all day researching and refining some pills. The last time he ate one, his old bones were almost broken. Therefore, Du Su was also very bleak. He could do nothing about such a thing. After all, had good intentions. Of course, he couldn't let Ling down. What's the matter? Why are you so flustered? Don't you know that I'm cultivating? Du Su was a little unhappy. He had finally prepared himself to cultivate, but it was all ruined by this guy who made a big fuss. Father, someone wants to see you. Who's so amazing? I'm not seeing him. I'm cultivating. If anyone dares to disturb me, I'll crush them. Saying this, Du Su's eyes flashed fiercely. This was a warning look. If someone really angered him later, he would definitely do as he said. No, father, this person is not simple. Du Tianhe hurriedly said. If it was a normal person, naturally, they wouldn't dare to disturb Do Su. Everyone in the Do family knew that this person's cultivation was high and his temper was quite fiery. If they really angered Do Su, the result would often be very miserable. Therefore, ordinary people didn't dare to disturb Do Su. In the entire Do family, Do Su was the king of hell with a bad temper. Who is it? Hearing Do Tianhe's words, Do Su suddenly became interested. After all, Do Tianhe wasn't a child. If he said that this person wasn't an ordinary person, then there must be something special. Therefore, Do Su was ready to listen. It's Ling Er's classmate from the Xingyan dynasty. Originally, Do Tianhe wanted to introduce the powerful old woman. However, after thinking about it, it seemed that Li Zongjiu's cultivation was stronger. Moreover, Li Zongjiu seemed to be in a dominant position, so he introduced Li Zongjiu first. However, Li Zongjiu's cultivation didn't seem that powerful. Do Tianhe was speechless for a while and only said this sentence after a long time. Classmate? Oh, you're talking about that brat who wants to eat swan meat, right? He's got guts. He actually dared to come directly to my Do clan, to come in front of me, old Dai. Then I'd like to see what kind of ability this brat has. He actually wants to touch my Ling. Do Su immediately gloated. One had to know that Ling, who was the only girl in their family for a long time. Moreover, she had an extremely strong talent in alchemy. It was estimated that she could revive the Do family's alchemy ability. If it could be restored, then the Do family's strength would definitely skyrocket. Therefore, Do Su was also very fond of Do Ling. He even specially let Do Ling go to the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor to learn. To be honest, there weren't many people in the Do family who could refine pills. Therefore, Do Ling could only learn all the knowledge by herself. Even the pills that were refined had to be tested continuously. If one's cultivation wasn't enough, then they might be directly poisoned to death by Do Ling. Even so, old man Do Su still doted on this girl very much. He even said that as long as she didn't die, she could refine as much as she wanted. Now, there was a stinking brat who wanted to take away their Ling. Do Su wanted to see how capable this person was. Immediately, Do Su waved his hand and led the experts of the Do family directly to the reception hall. It's not like that. It's not like that. When Do Tianhe saw Do Su's actions, he knew that things were bad. He already knew that Do Su had a bad temper. Now that he said this, he guessed that Do Su wouldn't listen to anything. You useless coward, stand aside. When Do Su saw Do Tianhe's cowardice, he only took it as Do Tianhe admitting defeat. When Do Su stepped into the reception hall, he and the experts of the Do family behind him all felt a strange feeling. There seemed to be an extremely terrifying aura in the room. Something was wrong. Do Su's eyes suddenly flashed. Immediately, Do Su looked in front of him. There was a man and two women. The man's aura was weak. He was trash. The other beautiful woman's aura was normal. She was only a 5th grade or 6th grade sovereign. She wouldn't be able to do much in the Do family. However, there was only the old woman. Her strength was terrifying. Do Su's aura couldn't even detect the old woman's condition. However, when Do Su saw the crutch in the old woman's hand, he felt as if his mind was going crazy. This crutch? This? Suddenly, Do Su felt his little heart beat violently. Are you experts of the Sparrow Divine Palace? Chapter 1288. Sparrow Divine Palace. How could the experts of the Du clan not have heard of Sparrow Divine Palace? After all, the distance between the two clans wasn't very far. Therefore, it was normal for them to have heard of Sparrow Divine Palace. If the people of Sparrow God Palace hadn't taken the initiative to greet them, they wouldn't have dared to rashly disturb such a mysterious and powerful existence like Sparrow God Palace. Otherwise, the only outcome they would face would be death. Even Do Su didn't expect that the people of Sparrow Divine Palace would come to their doorstep. It was quite unexpected. He was really shocked and couldn't believe it. However, the 100-Bird Scepter was very famous because when the Du clan was just established, one of their ancestors wanted to visit the Sparrow Divine Palace before he broke through to the Venerable Realm. He wanted to establish a friendly relationship with the people of Sparrow Divine Palace. At that time, he didn't even see the shadow of the person and was directly hit by the scepter. Therefore, he described the appearance of the scepter in detail to his descendants so that they would pay attention to it and never offend the owner of the scepter. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. After that, no one from the Du clan dared to approach the Sparrow Divine Palace and didn't want to establish a relationship with them. Now, the legendary person had actually appeared in their Du clan. At this moment, Du Su couldn't wait to grab Du Tianhe and give him a good kick. It seemed like this little guy had already forgotten his daily teachings. Therefore he acted like this. He didn't even know to report the arrival of the master of Sparrow Divine Palace. He deserved to die. The experts of the Du clan behind him also knelt down one by one and performed the etiquette of Jianghu. At this time, the third elder of Sparrow Divine Palace was somewhat arrogant. He seemed to be telling Li Zongjio that he had seen who was the real authoritative person. Bing Ke was quite surprised. How did these people know? Moreover, they seemed to be in awe of the Sparrow Divine Palace. It seemed like the Sparrow Divine Palace's strength and influence were already known to the outside world. After all, Ice Sparrow had never left the Sparrow Divine Palace, so she didn't know anything about the outside world. She only knew how to focus on cultivation. She was a very isolated person. She didn't know what the three old men of the Sparrow Divine Palace were thinking. They actually used such a method to make people cultivate. If they didn't have any experience, how could they become a top expert? Therefore, this little girl was basically crippled. Of course, it was not too late to experience it now. Are you the one in charge here? The third elder asked faintly. Under such circumstances, he naturally raised his aura to a very high level. Just by looking at him, one would have the feeling that he was the reincarnation of a top expert. Naturally, no one dared to offend him. Yes, I'm Du Su. I'm the current head of the Du family. Elder, if you have any orders, you can tell me directly. Du Su originally thought that Li Zongjio was a stinky brat who wanted to eat swan meat. However, he was pleasantly surprised when he saw that Li Zongjio actually had a background in the Sparrow Divine Palace. It was simply a great bargain. Of course, it wasn't a great bargain. At the very least, they had to be well matched in terms of social status. If the two of them found each other pleasing to the eye, in addition to the fact that both of them were very outstanding. Li Zongjio's background was so resounding that there was naturally nothing difficult for him to do. Therefore, he was quite happy in his heart. He immediately snickered in his heart. Get up first. I want you to do something for me. The third elder raised his hand slightly, causing everyone, including Du Su, to stand up. Moreover, none of them were able to resist this power. It was so domineering. Even if they wanted to refuse, they didn't have any way or strength to do so. Everyone was shocked because if he could do this, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill all of them. It was simply too terrifying. He was indeed an elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace. Elder, as long as it's within my ability, I'll do it. Du Su was a little excited. After all, establishing a relationship with the Sparrow Divine Palace was something that all of his ancestors wanted to do. He didn't expect that there would be hope of success this time. Immediately, Du Su was extremely excited. This opportunity was quite rare. However, Du Su's heart was already filled with joy. Since he had already placed his family here, he naturally had to ensure the safety of his family. How could he possibly send his family members to their deaths? Du Su naturally knew what the elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace wanted to say. Wasn't it about the marriage proposal? Well said. I want you to help me find the whereabouts of the heavenly monster tribe. Tell them that the Sparrow Divine Palace is looking for them. When the third elder mentioned the name of the heavenly demon tribe, his eyes were blazing with anger. He couldn't wait to kill every single one of the heavenly demon tribe. However, he still had to endure for a while. He had to wait for these people to come to him first before he could kill them all. These despicable people dared to destroy the Sparrow Divine Palace. When he thought of this, he was incomparably furious. He unconsciously released a wisp of murderous intent. Instantly, everyone present clearly felt a strong sense of danger. Du Su and the others naturally felt the anger in the elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace. Since that was the case, there was nothing to say. It must be an enemy. So it wasn't a marriage proposal. This caused Du Su to feel a little worried. Why wasn't it a marriage proposal? However, it was good that it wasn't a marriage proposal. This way, Ling wouldn't be married off. Only in his own family could he protect Ling from being bullied. Elder, don't worry. I'll do it right away. Since the Dou family had been established in the untainted land for so many years, they naturally had their own methods of using energy. They also had their own skills in finding people. Therefore, it wasn't a difficult task. It was easy to spread the news. However, it would be difficult to find the Heavenly Monster Tribe. Therefore, they could only wait for the Heavenly Monster Tribe to come to them. Very good. The third elder nodded with satisfaction. What's next? The third elder asked. This made Du Su a little confused. What next? Just as he was about to clarify, he raised his head and saw that the third elder wasn't asking him, but the young man. Moreover, the third elder seemed to be asking for advice. This made Du Su even more surprised. Could it be that Li Zongjio's status was higher than the elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace? Even the elder had to lower himself to ask Li Zongjio. Just wait. I've already deployed my mental strength. As long as these sneaky things are within 10,000 miles, I'll be able to find them. Li Zongjio said indifferently. 10,000 miles. If an ordinary person had said this, Du Su would have thought that the person was bragging. Then, he would have slapped the person and sent his head flying. But today, Li Zongjio said such words in front of an elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace. If he wasn't bluffing, then he really had such strength. Therefore, Du Su could only squint his eyes and smile apologetically. In any case, Li Zongjio was so strong that he could say whatever he wanted. Li Zongjio, why are you here? Come and take a look at the elixir I just refined. Dou Ling had just received the news and hurried over. Grandpa, you're here. That's great. Come and try the elixir I just refined. Dou Ling jumped out excitedly with a pill in her hand. It was obvious that it was poison. Chapter 1289. Ahem, Ling don't make a fuss. Let's talk about this later. Grandpa still has important things to do now. Du Su hurriedly said. He was afraid that Dou Ling's appearance would offend these people. After all, these people were not people he could afford to offend. If something went wrong, perhaps the entire Dou family would cease to exist. Although these people did not look so fierce and seemed to be a little easy to get along with, if they were really angry or showed the slightest dissatisfaction, the consequences would be quite serious. What kind of pill did you refine? When Li Zongjio saw the pill in Dou Ling's hand, he was slightly taken aback. He didn't know where Dou Ling had messed around with the pill, but she had completely concocted it according to her own imagination. Du Su was lucky that he was not poisoned to death by Dou Ling's pill. Otherwise, he did not know what would have happened to him. I refined it. I call it the blood-breaking pill. Dou Ling said. When Du Su heard the name, his face suddenly changed and became extremely ugly. He did not know how he survived after taking those pills from Dou Ling. Blood-breaking pill? When Li Zongjio heard the name of the pill, he was suddenly shocked. He did not expect the blood-breaking pill to appear so quickly. You really are a little demoness. Li Zongjio said in surprise. The pill formula of the blood-breaking pill was something that appeared at least 1,000 years later. Moreover, there were very few people who could refine it. Even if they had the pill formula, it was impossible to refine it. When this pill formula was first circulated, the effect of the blood-breaking pill was still shocking. At that time, there were only 3 blood-breaking pills, which caused the entire cultivation world to fight over it. Naturally, it was quite powerful. No one expected that this pill could have such a great effect. Sometimes, some pills could not be divided into grades, but it did not prevent these pills from having very powerful effects. The blood-breaking pill in her hand, after taking it, could instantly fill the body's blood with power, forming a violent fighting state. It directly increased one's strength by 3 times. It was an indiscriminate increase of 3 times. Of course, the duration of this threefold effect depended on one's strength. Some people could maintain it for a long time, but for someone like Li Zongjio, if he were to take the blood-breaking pill, he would only be able to maintain it for half a second. However, half a second was enough to reverse the situation. To be able to refine such a heaven-defying pill, it was enough to show how powerful this person was. This pill can't be eaten carelessly. What materials do you need? Help me concoct 8 or 10 pills. The effects of this thing are pretty perverted. Li Zongjio said, "How would you know if you haven't eaten it? Grandpa, try it." Dou Ling hurriedly urged as if she couldn't wait to see the effects of her pill. However, after hearing Li Zongjio's words, she didn't dare to eat it carelessly. "Let's talk about it later," Dou Su said repeatedly, then took the opportunity to pull Dou Ling aside. Dou Ling was held down by Dou Tenha. Otherwise, Dou Ling would be entangled with Dou Su. "Hee, the three of you must be tired from the long journey. First, I will arrange a quiet room for the three of you. In addition, I will immediately prepare a banquet to welcome the three of you." Dou Su said, "No need. Cultivators like us don't like this. Just take us to a quiet place. Don't disturb us if there's nothing important." The third elder of Sparrow Divine Palace was rather aloof. However, his words were in line with their impression of the people of Sparrow Divine Palace. These people were supposed to have such an incomparably aloof attitude. On the contrary, Dou Su still couldn't figure out the relationship between Li Zongjio and these people. However, the two sides should belong to different paths. They should be united for some purpose. Moreover, Li Zongjio belonged to the stronger side. However, Li Zongjio asked for Dou Ling's pill formula. At the same time, he used the alchemy room of the Dou family to refine the pill formula of the blood-breaking pill to improve its effect. Although the effect of the blood-breaking pill was very obvious, the side effects of the blood-breaking pill were also very obvious. If Li Zongjio took this pill, his strength would soar, and he would lose all his strength in the remaining half a month. Therefore, the side effects were also very big. Li Zongjio wanted to change the formula of the blood-breaking pill in his previous life, but later on, the pill formula had been modified countless times. It was impossible to find the original version of the pill formula. Now, he didn't expect to meet the founder of this pill formula in such a situation. The founder was right in front of him, so Li Zongjio was very surprised. In Li Zongjio's previous life, he had deciphered many Dan recipes, even some ancient Dan recipes. As long as he took the Dan recipe and studied it a little, he would be able to analyze its composition and specific effects. It could be said that he was quite powerful. However, Li Zongjio had no way to understand the formula of the blood-breaking pill. Therefore, it could be said that the person who created this blood-breaking pill was even more talented in alchemy than he was. Li Zongjio couldn't deny this point. Now, Li Zongjio finally encountered such a situation with great difficulty. He unexpectedly found the creator of the blood-breaking pill, and it was Dou Ling. How could he reason with this kind of thing? Therefore, Li Zongjio was very eager to study this pill at this moment. Even if he faced the heavenly monster tribe, it would be a sharp weapon. Actually, there is a very precious medicinal primer added to this blood-breaking pill. After looking at all the medicinal ingredients, Li Zongjio felt that something was wrong because this pill formula was almost the same as the one he had obtained before. He had even tried this method countless times. It was impossible to achieve this effect. What is it? Li Zongjio frowned. He saw Dou Ling mysteriously take out a silver needle and gently pierce a small hole on her finger. Then she forced a drop of blood out and dropped it into the pill furnace. Suddenly, everything in the pill furnace underwent a huge change. It could be seen that the whole pill furnace was crazily condensing at this moment. Li Zongjio had never seen blood with such an effect. Therefore, when he saw it, his eyes widened. No wonder he couldn't figure out the specifics of the pill formula in his previous life. He always felt that there was a missing medicinal primer. Now, he finally knew that it was Dou Ling's blood. Your bloodline. Li Zongjio had never seen Dou Ling's bloodline, but he could feel that it contained a powerful force. As for what kind of force it was, Li Zongjio couldn't tell. It was a kind of high-level physique that he had never seen before. No wonder after Do Ling, the effect of the blood-breaking pill couldn't be restored. It was because there was a missing medicinal primer and Do Ling-er's blood to activate it. It was precisely because of this that these pills couldn't achieve the true effect of the blood-breaking pill. She was really a mysterious person. You are really a madman, but don't do this in the future. It will consume your origin power. Chapter 1290. Li Zongjiu exhorted. Such behavior was extremely dangerous, because once one went crazy, it was very likely that one would use one's own blood to do all kinds of strange experiments. Once one went crazy, one could really do anything. It would not be strange if one jumped directly into the alchemy furnace. It's okay. I only need 1 drop to increase the efficacy of the pill by dozens of times. I only discovered this recently. Do Ling-er said seriously. I said no, it's no. Li Zongjiu directly reached out his hand and knocked Do Ling-er's head hard. Do Ling-er's face immediately became aggrieved. Fine, I won't. Soon after, this batch of elixirs was successfully refined as well. Just like before, there were 3 elixirs produced. Give this one to me. Give the rest to your family. It can save lives at critical times. Li Zongjiu said. This pill contained Do Ling-er's blood essence, so it must be very precious. Therefore, Li Zongjiu did not ask for much. Don't refine this kind of pill in the future. It's addictive. Li Zongjiu said in a serious tone. His expression left a deep impression in people's minds. Therefore, Do Ling-er nodded her head, indicating that she wouldn't do it again. Li Zongjiu also directly destroyed the pill formula. Although the effect of this pill was strong, it wasn't a good thing for Do Ling-er no matter how one looked at it. The one in his hand was enough. Then, Li Zongjiu followed Do Ling-er to visit the Howling Moon Wolf King. It could be said that this guy ate and slept well in the sky's suspension mountain. It did not need to worry about being attacked at all. Because once someone attacked, it would not be able to stop them. Either way, it would die. That was why it was so relaxed. Moreover, in such an environment, everything it ate and drank was rich in yuan qi. Therefore, the Howling Moon Wolf King grew into a Howling Moon Wolf King. Under such rich cultivation conditions, it broke through its original limit and became a Howling Moon Wolf King. When it first saw Li Zongjiu, the Howling Moon Wolf King was stunned. Obviously, it did not expect to see Li Zongjiu here. No matter where it went, it felt as if it was caught by Li Zongjiu. Could it be that Li Zongjiu was here to bring it back? The Howling Moon Wolf King's heart was filled with melancholy when he thought about how his peaceful days were about to end. Seems like you don't want to go back. When Li Zongjiu saw the Howling Moon Wolf King's attitude, how could he not know what this fellow was thinking? After all, it was a meta-beast that specialized in mental strength. Hence, its intelligence was more prominent and more obvious. It's not bad for you to stay here. At least it's a good place to return to. Li Zongjiu said. The Howling Moon Wolf King was only used in the early stages. Now, Li Zongjiu could kill many Howling Moon Wolf Kings with a single slap. Hence, there was no need to bring the Howling Moon Wolf King back. What could it do with it? Its level was not high enough. It could not keep up with Li Zongjiu's pace. When the Howling Moon Wolf King heard that it could continue living here, it was elated. At the same time, Li Zongjiu removed the Howling Moon Wolf King's mental restraint. Controlling a meta-beast like this was useless to Li Zongjiu. It was better to release it early so that he could save some mental strength. The Howling Moon Wolf King regained its freedom. However, this did not seem to be special to the Howling Moon Wolf King. After all, it was like this every day. It was in a very free state and did not feel any restraint. Hence, it did not make any difference to it whether the mental restraint was removed or not. After that, Li Zongjiu found a quiet place to stay. Of course, Li Zongjiu was not idle either. He was refining the chaotic yuan bell as fast as he could. There were still 2 strands of primal chaos qi in the chaos bell that had yet to be refined. If Li Zongjiu could completely refine these 2 strands of primal chaos qi, he would have complete control over the chaos bell. In such a situation, it seemed that the primordial bell could also play a very powerful combat role. facing the mysterious and terrifying heavenly demon tribe. Li Zongjio was not arrogant, nor did he look down on them. After all, Li Zongjio knew how strong these people were. If they could ignore the defensive array formation of the Sparrow Divine Palace, there had to be a God-grade array master among them. Otherwise, the defensive array formation would not have been destroyed so thoroughly. And the primordial chaos chi within the primordial chaos bell must be a sharp weapon to break the array formation. In order to deal with these people, one must display a sufficiently powerful method. Otherwise, even if one found them, it would just be a free death. Before the arrival of a great enemy, he wanted to improve his strength properly. The third elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace had the same idea. However, unlike the other two, he naturally had to explain the situation properly since he had already encountered a disaster. If anything happens to me, you will be the only successor of the Sparrow Divine Palace. You must continue the bloodline of the Sparrow Divine Palace. The third elder called the Ice Sparrow in front of him. Enduring humiliation is nothing, but you must endure it. We can afford to wait. The great Tao of the world is a cycle of cause and effect. You must continue to wait until a real opportunity arrives. Seize this opportunity and restore the prestige of the Sparrow Divine Palace. The third elder sighed. This battle with the heavenly demon tribe would not bode well for them. Although he knew that he was no match for them, he had to give it his all. If he did not give it his all, he would definitely regret it. Therefore, the third elder had to give a clear account of the Sparrow God Palace's affairs. Elder, can't Li Zongjio reverse the situation? The Ice Sparrow did not know many people, but she had witnessed the miracles that had happened to Li Zongjio. He had even withstood the chaotic chi. This kind of strength was unimaginable to ordinary people. Even if it were the three elders, they might not be able to do it to such an extent. In fact, they did not even dare to touch the primal chaos chi. However, Li Zongjio dared to dive into it and train for such a long time. Such a feat was already an extremely great miracle. I'm not sure about this person's background. No matter what, we have to be careful of him. This person will do anything to achieve his goal. Don't think that he is a kind person. I can see countless killings in him. Ice Sparrow listened in a daze and nodded blankly. However, the Ice Sparrow also kept a lookout for Li Zongjio because she had observed that he was a good person. Chapter 1291. Eldritch Demon Zone. Unfalling Mountain. The top 10 Forbidden Lands were ranked first. No one knew where the top 10 Forbidden Lands came from, but it was passed down from one person to another. In the end, it became like this, passed down by word of mouth. Everyone knew about the terrifying existences in the Forbidden Lands. The devouring moon forest that Li Zongjio had passed through was ranked at the bottom of the Forbidden Lands. However, the Buluo Mountain was always ranked first no matter where it was or what kind of situation it was. That was how terrifying Unfalling Mountain was. However, no one knew exactly how terrifying it was. Over the years, the people who had tried to find out the reason why Buluo Mountain was so terrifying had all lost their lives. After that, no one was curious anymore. After all, those who were curious had all died. The rest of them had not even explored the rest of the Forbidden Lands, so they did not dare to come to Unfalling Mountain. The mountains in the No Luo mountain range were all suspended in midair. They looked like floating balloons. Anyone who saw them would exclaim in surprise. How could it be so magical? At the highest peak, there was a loud boom. The flying bird platform fell to the ground. At the same time, there was an extremely thick chain on the flying bird Dao platform. One end of the chain was connected to the flying bird Dao platform, while the other end was tied to a figure. There were two people trapped by the chain. In fact, Li Zongjio recognized these two figures. In front of them was a man in a black robe. He was using a dagger to gently carve a wooden sculpture in his hand. In the end, the wooden sculpture was in a strange state. It had the body of a bird and the tail of a dragon. Its posture was strange, but it was imposing. The first elder of Sparrow God Palace opened his eyes and looked at his body. He then looked at the flying bird Dao platform behind him and stared at the situation in front of him. When he saw the thin figure standing in front of him, he was slightly surprised. However, the first elder was not flustered. Heavenly Demon Tribe, your actions will only bring about your own destruction. In the past, your ancestors wanted to gather the power of the 3 supreme treasures, but they failed in the end. Have you all forgotten? The great elder sneered, but this didn't affect the black-robed figure in front of him. He was gently carving the wooden sculpture in his hand in order to make it more lifelike, as if it was a living individual. It was as if it wanted to break free from the wooden sculpture to achieve this effect. After that, the black-robed man used his finger to lightly tap on the wood carving. Soon after, the wood shavings on the wood carving began to peel off. After that, it flapped its wings and moved. It left the base of the wooden sculpture and flew into the sky. I'm different from them. I'm stronger. The mysterious person said slowly, "Where is your third brother hiding?" The flying bird platform has already been activated. If any one of us dies, no external force will be able to open it. Once it is reactivated, the new Sparrow Empress will appear. With your strength, there is no way you can stop her. The Sparrow Divine Palace elder said slowly. He was quite confident in the flying bird platform. As long as Qi Yanran appeared, she would definitely be able to reach the peak of this power and return to the peak of the Sparrow Empress realm. She won't have that moment, the figure said slowly. When he lifted his chin, a pair of deep eyes could be seen. The things that could be seen through those eyes were incredibly far away, and those who looked at them would feel as if they would be immersed in them. However, when the first elder saw the Heavenly Demon Tribe member's eyes, he was slightly shocked. He had a feeling that he had seen such eyes somewhere else before. His heart immediately calmed down. He must have seen such eyes somewhere before. Even if you don't tell me, I will find them. The black-robed man said slowly. He lowered his head, and those deep eyes were no longer there. They were difficult to see. Suddenly, a black vortex appeared in the sky. Then, a figure landed in front of the black-robed man. My lord, we have received news that the third elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace is looking for us. This news came from the Dou family of the Sky Suspension Mountain. How is that possible? We have no contact with the Dou family. Trying to get information from us? It's useless. The first elder said slowly. There was a trace of disdain in his eyes, but he was panicking inside. Logically speaking, if one was trapped in the chaotic Yuan Bell, it was basically impossible to get out. Even with Li Zongjiu's strength, it would take at least a few hundred years. In a few hundred years, there would be a lot of changes, and it was inevitable that other things would happen. It was better than being caught now. There was still hope. We will know soon. The 5 of you, go and catch them for me. The black-robed man waved his hand towards the sky. 5 figures suddenly flew out from the sleeves of the robe. From the looks of it, they were all wooden sculptures before, but after the black-robed man pointed at them with his finger, they immediately obtained the god's life chi. It was an eye-opener to see such a miraculous effect. These dragon sparrow statues instantly transformed into people with different appearances. They leaped up and brought the person who had just delivered the message into the distance. Boom! The 5 figures disappeared in the sky. The first elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace closed his eyes. He could not do anything after being chained by the chains behind him. He could only sit quietly and meditate to adjust his state of mind. 5 people. Back then, when these people had arrived, it was the black-robed man in front of them who had destroyed their formation with a single palm strike. Even when the 2 of them had joined forces, they were still no match for the 4 dragon sparrows of the enemy. The strongest person had not even made a move. Therefore, when he saw the 5 of them taking action, the first elder could only pray. The first elder could only pray that the messenger was not the third elder. However, no matter what, the Dou family would not be able to escape today's calamity. Sky Suspension Mountain. Li Zongjiu and the other 2 waited here for 3 days. 3 days was enough for the news to spread across the Elysium. Soon, the other party would come knocking. In order to ensure the safety of the Dou family, Li Zongjiu asked the Dou family to be prepared. When Du Su found out about the Heavenly Monster Tribe, he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. Chapter 1292. Previously, Du Su did not know much about the Heavenly Demon Tribe or the Heavenly Sparrow Tribe. Since it was a task assigned by the Sparrow Divine Palace, it should be within the scope of the Sparrow Divine Palace's control. Who would have thought that after checking the clan's ancient records, he would directly collapse? Even Du Su could feel a chill running down his spine. He had never expected such a ferocious group of origin beasts to exist. In the eyes of the human race, all heavenly demons were extremely ferocious. However, in the eyes of the Heavenly Demon Tribe, the Heavenly Demon Tribe was a truly ferocious tribe. They did not even want to talk about them. However, as time passed, the Heavenly Demon Tribe gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Because they were too ferocious and cruel, it caused them to suffer the wrath of the heavens. Most of the experts in the clan suddenly died, and in the end, there were only a few bloodline seeds left. They couldn't find too many opportunities to revive. Recovering to their peak state in the past was very normal. The Heavenly Demon Tribe was too powerful. The Heavenly Demon Tribe had disappeared for nearly 10,000 years. Who would have thought that they would reappear today? Even the Du family had forgotten about them. They had forgotten about them. Now that they had reappeared, they finally recalled how powerful the Heavenly Demon Tribe was. Anyone who provoked the Heavenly Demon Tribe would never have the chance to regret it. Among the Heavenly Demon Tribe, the Heavenly Demon Tribe's martial strength was at the peak. It could even be said that they had no natural enemies. This time, the Du family had helped the Sparrow Divine Palace and Li Zongjio to spread the news about the search for the Heavenly Demon Tribe. This would definitely incur the displeasure of the Heavenly Demon Tribe. Once they appeared, they would definitely be implicated. However, it was too late now. The news had already been out for 3 days. Even if they wanted to retract it, they wouldn't be able to do so. If they were to give up now, wouldn't they be offending the Sparrow Divine Palace as well? At that time, both sides wouldn't be able to gain any benefits. The outcome would definitely be quite miserable. Du Su understood this logic. Du Su could only instruct his subordinates to prepare well. Perhaps a great calamity was about to befall them. Of course, this level of preparation was only limited to the Du family's combat personnel. They had to speed up their training and monitor the surrounding situation more closely. Otherwise, an irreversible problem might occur. As for the ordinary family members of the Du family, they continued to live their lives peacefully. However, today, Du Su was frowning. However, he suddenly received a piece of information and sent it over. After reading the report, Du Su was furious. It turned out that when the people of the Du clan were out training, they had a conflict with another ancient clan, the Tan clan, which was also their nemesis for many years. Not only were the items of the people on his side stolen, but they were also seriously injured. The other party had an elder leading the team, and it was said that he was a 9th-stage primitive emperor expert. Fortunately, his life was saved. But after hearing such news, who could sit still? The Tan family was clearly here to provoke them. There were certain territories in the untainted land. You worked in your territory, and I worked in mine. No one would cross the line. However, it was clear that these people from the Tan family were clearly here to stir up trouble. Father, let me lead a team to destroy the prestige of the Tan family. Even if I have to turn the untainted land upside down, I will capture them and bring them here. Du Tianhe said coldly. Yes, I will go too. I must capture these bastards and chop them into pieces. Fourth Uncle Du Tianfeng said. The two of them were also quite angry. They had actually bullied them. Although there had been some situations between them over the years, they had always kept their bottom line. At most, they would scold each other in the heat of the moment. However, it was rare for them to fight. It had not reached such a level yet. After all, the untainted land was so vast. It was not easy to encounter each other. But now, such a situation had happened. Obviously, the other party was targeting the Du clan. Let these bastards be arrogant for thousands of years. Today, we have to settle this matter properly. Second brother Du Tianlei said indifferently. However, the three of them were all rubbing their fists. They couldn't wait to go out and capture those thugs from the Tan family. However, the head of the Du clan, Du Su, remained silent and did not speak. Obviously, the mad dragon of the Du clan was also trying his best to calm down and brew his emotions. "Let's hold back for now," Du Su said in a deep voice. Father, how can we tolerate this?" The three of them were unusually agitated. After such a thing had happened, how could they let them go back alive? The three of them were not afraid of such a thing. "I said let's not take action first. After this matter is over, I will personally go out and destroy the Tan family. Hold back for another month." Du Su estimated that the matter of the Sparrow God Palace would be settled in a month's time. After a month, no matter what the situation was, they would come back to settle this score with the Tan family. Although the anger in everyone's heart could not be quenched. But since the head of the Du clan had said that he would personally take action after a month, the rest of them did not dare to have any objections. Naturally, they had to stabilize this matter first. He could only suppress his anger for the time being. As for what was about to happen, they were all a little unclear. Just as everyone gathered together to discuss this matter, dark clouds suddenly rolled in the sky. One could clearly see dark clouds moving in the sky like wild beasts. It seemed like the end of the world. Accompanying it was an extremely terrifying aura. Boom! Within the dark clouds, there were a few figures that were swaying rapidly, faintly discernible. At this moment, Li Zongjio, who was on a mountain peak, sneered. "They're finally here." The third elder of the Sparrow God Palace and Bing Ke quickly came to Li Zongjio's side. Experts like them would naturally be able to sense the sudden commotion that had occurred. Boom! Within the dark clouds, a few figures flashed down like black lightning. Without saying a word, they charged towards the third elder. The heavenly demon tribe was naturally familiar with the aura of the Sky Sparrow tribe. There was no need for them to ask any questions. "It's good that you're here. I was afraid that you wouldn't come." Li Zongjio was not included in the attack range of these people. After all, their goal was to take the third elder of the Sparrow God Palace away. Of course, it would be a different matter if someone intervened. Today, Li Zongjio was here specifically to intervene. Chapter 1293. Two streaks of black light were the first to descend. They were surrounded by terrifying black lightning. One of them charged towards the third elder of Sparrow God Palace, while the other attempted to kill the Ice Sparrow. When the two streaks of black light appeared, the Doe family members also felt a strong aura. Where did these people come from? Heavenly Monster Tribe. Is this the aura of the Heavenly Monster Tribe? Do Su squinted his eyes. Although he had not reached the honorable realm, he was not far from it. He could clearly feel that these people were gradually surpassing the honorable realm. Boom! Li Zongjio waved his hand. The chaotic origin bell. The primordial bell spread out a magnificent light. As the light appeared, the two rapidly falling figures were directly wrapped up. Clang! The two figures slammed into the primordial bell, causing a loud bang to erupt. But then, the two figures revealed their original forms. They had the body of a dragon sparrow. Heavenly Monster Tribe. The third elder of the Divine Sparrow Palace took a deep breath after seeing the two dragon sparrows. After so many years, he finally saw this legendary race. The Heavenly Monster Tribe was the natural enemy of the Dragon Tribe and the Heavenly Sparrow Tribe. Only when the two tribes joined forces could they defeat the Heavenly Monster Tribe. But the Heavenly Monster Tribe and the Heavenly Sparrow Tribe were gradually coming to an end. Only the Dragon Tribe was still as glorious as ever. Although they were still far from their most glorious days, they were definitely in a powerful state compared to the other races on the continent. The Heavenly Monster Tribe had descended again. They wanted to borrow the strength of the Heavenly Sparrow Tribe to strengthen themselves before conquering Dragon Island. If they lost the power of the Greenbird platform, they would not be able to fight against the Dragon Tribe. But who knew that they would encounter Li Zongjio right from the start? Li Zongjio did not care whether they were demons or not. As long as they did not touch Li Zongjio's people, he did not care what they did. But now it was too late. The two dragon sparrows were trapped inside the primordial bell. The primordial bell also revealed its huge body. Its original state was also transparent, and the two dragon sparrows trapped inside could be seen. No matter how hard the two dragon sparrows struggled, they were unable to break through the primordial bell in front of them. Clang! Suddenly, 3 beams of black light landed on the primordial bell and hammered it to the ground, making an extremely loud sound. Li Zongjio did not say a word. He directly took out the unparalleled sword and attacked the 3 shadows entrenched on the primordial bell. Boom! Li Zongjio's figure surged with a terrifying aura. It shrouded the 3 shadows in front of him. "Leave one to me," the 3rd elder of the Divine Sparrow Palace said. The 3rd elder was not an incompetent person. Now that the enemy had appeared, she naturally had to kill them. After all, she was an expert in the honorable realm. Li Zongjio naturally did not care. As long as he captured these people and tortured them to find out where Qi Yanran was, it would be enough. That was the purpose of this trip. Now that he had captured 2 of them, the remaining 3 could be killed directly. However, Li Zongjio felt that these people's actions were a little strange. Their aura was more like lifeless puppets. What exactly were they? Let's kill them first. The 100-bird scepter in the hands of the 3rd elder also transformed into tens of thousands of birds, directly choosing one of them and trapping him. As for the other 2, they were handed over to Li Zongjio. The sword qi in the unparalleled sword settled. A wave of surging qi instantly surged over. Boom! The sword qi in Li Zongjio's hand rolled. Immediately, the 2 in front of him were forced to fly towards him at the same time. Boom! Li Zongjio's sword qi was shattered. One of the figures quickly flew towards Li Zongjio at an extremely fast speed. Li Zongjio performed the hidden dragon art under his feet. He directly flew to the side and directly slapped down with his palm. Buddha's palm. Boom! The palm hit nothing. It directly slapped the mountain where Li Zongjio and the others were waiting for into a pile of debris. A huge cloud of dust flew up. It directly engulfed the figures in the sky. Suddenly, the entire battlefield became even more chaotic. Du Su and the others could only barely feel the tremors that were stirred up by the dust that filled the air were so shocking. If Li Zongjio's palm had hit them, even with the mountain guarding array, they would have been smashed into pieces in an instant. Damn, this kid is so fierce? Du Tianhe and the others were instantly shocked. Previously, this kid did not show off his strength. Who knew that he would be so fierce when he attacked? Just the casual palm just now had directly exceeded the limit of Du Tianhe and the others' strength. Therefore, Li Zongjio's strength was far above Du Tianhe and the others. It was even obvious that Li Zongjio's strength was even stronger than the 3rd elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace. This was because the 3rd elder of the Sparrow Divine Palace only dealt with 1 Sparrow Divine Palace. Li Zongjio directly went to deal with 2 Sparrows Divine Palace. At the beginning, Li Zongjio directly trapped 2 Sparrows Divine Palace with a divine artifact. It was equivalent to killing 4 Sparrows Divine Palace in an instant. His strength was amazing and impressive. Amidst the flying dust, Li Zongjio released terrifying sword qi one after another. The speed of the 2 dragon sparrows was also extremely fast. Even as they moved, cracks appeared in the space. Boom! Boom! The 2 dragon sparrows attacked Li Zongjio from the left and right. The space around Li Zongjio gradually began to collapse. This put Li Zongjio directly in danger. Li Zongjio immediately pushed out the unparalleled sword in his hand. A fiery red aura wrapped around the unparalleled sword and attacked one of the dragon sparrows. The sword was covered with blazing sword qi. One of the heavenly demon tribesmen flew into the distance and its tail was cut off. The heavenly demon tribesman with a broken tail roared and pounced on the unparalleled sword. A flaming figure appeared. His gaze was piercingly cold. His aura was unparalleled. It was King of Fire. Die! King of Fire did not expect that Li Zongjio would be in trouble as soon as he appeared. Immediately, King of Fire took the initiative to grab the unparalleled sword in his hand and attacked the heavenly demon tribesman with a broken tail. However, the remaining one suddenly grabbed Li Zongjio's shoulder. Its tail was like a sharp sword and aimed at Li Zongjio's neck. Boom! Li Zongjio sneered in the face of this tail that was rushing towards him. He grabbed the other party's tail with his hand. He pulled it hard. He forcefully tore off the other party's tail. The body that had been tempered by the power of chaos was so strong. Chapter 1294. In fact, Li Zongjio's strength had already reached an incredible level. Even though it wasn't obvious in terms of strength, one could clearly feel how terrifying his strength was when he really fought. Therefore, Li Zongjio easily tore the heavenly monster tribe in half when he unleashed his strength. There was no resistance at all. However, the remaining heavenly monster tribe members were also quite tough. They didn't lose their fighting strength after their tail was broken. Instead, they kept attacking Li Zongjio's head. Obviously, the heavenly monster tribe had accurately grasped the weakness of the human race. It could even be said that the human race was full of weaknesses. However, if the head was directly smashed, it would be impossible for the human race to recover. The human race could only die in paradise. However, Li Zongjio had the chaotic body. He easily blocked the attacks of the heavenly monster tribe. There was no resistance at all. Bang, bang, bang. Sounds of vibrations reverberated in the space. The torn space quickly recovered. Li Zongjio was also very careful. However, in comparison, the spatial power in front of him didn't seem so dangerous. If it was in the past, Li Zongjio would be very careful because once he was sucked into this space, it would be difficult for him to find himself again. It wouldn't take long for his yuan qi to be depleted and he could only wait for death. After all, Li Zongjio had personally experimented before. He would shatter a piece of space, tie the enemy to a rope, and throw them into the space. About 2 minutes later, when the enemy was pulled back, they were basically dead. There was even one time when he directly threw a person into the spatial crack and directly marked the person's body. After the spatial crack healed, the person was nowhere to be found. No one knew where he had gone. In any case, he had never been seen on the continent. However, Li Zongjio's body had been refined in the chaotic force after much difficulty, directly tempering his body into the chaotic body. Therefore, he was no longer as fearful as he was in the past when he was in the spatial crack. Now, he already had a mental state that was sufficient to protect himself in this space. Therefore, Li Zongjio was pleasantly surprised by his own realization. However, unless he had no other choice, he didn't dare to try and barge into the shattered space alone. Li Zongjio tore a huge hole in the space behind him, grabbed the heavenly demon race member, and threw him into the crack. The heavenly monster tribesman seemed to be terrified at this moment. He kept struggling, wanting to rush back. However, it was too late. The space crack was cut and the heavenly monster tribesman disappeared instantly. Opening a crack in space was clearly no simple matter. It would have been difficult for Li Zongjio to accomplish this with his original strength, but he could do it easily with his chaotic body. What? This guy can actually tear space as he pleases? Even the third elder of the Sparrow God Palace, who was a venerable, was extremely shocked. Even the third elder of the Sparrow God Palace would have to prepare well if he wanted to tear space apart. With the power of a single move, he could tear space apart. However, he still needed to prepare beforehand. It was impossible for him to do it as freely as Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio, on the other hand, looked a little too relaxed. The King of Fire was also on par with the heavenly monster tribesman with the peerless sword in his hand. After all, the peerless sword was an ancient demon slayer sword. It possessed boundless power and was made of a rather special material. It was tough and unyielding. With the sharpness of the peerless sword, he could completely suppress the heavenly monster tribesman. Of course, he also needed to see how capable the heavenly monster tribesman was. Li Zongjio extended his hand and summoned the peerless sword back to his hand. Facing the relentless heavenly monster tribesman, he slashed out with the sword. At the same time, Li Zongjio poured the chaotic qi in his body into the peerless sword. Boom! At this moment, the peerless sword seemed to erupt with true power. It surged out in an instant and a terrifying force cut the heavenly monster tribesman in half. Bang! After being cut in half, the heavenly monster tribesman stopped moving. His entire body began to stiffen and change. In the end, he turned into a small statue. A wooden statue? Li Zongjio picked up the wooden statue that had been cut in half and carefully observed it. The wood statue was made of a special material. Even after being cut in half, it still retained a strong vitality. Therefore, after being carved and injected with energy, it could become a puppet of the heavenly monster tribesman. It's not simple at all. Li Zongjio was shocked when he saw it. Before Li Zongjio took action, he thought that the heavenly monster tribesmen were real heavenly monster tribesmen. But now, it seemed that they were just puppets transformed from wooden statues. They were puppets. Just a puppet could possess such terrifying strength. It was clear that the heavenly monster tribesmen's methods were not ordinary. However, even though Li Zongjio knew how terrifying the heavenly monster tribesmen were, he still wanted to fight with them until the end. You go first. Li Zongjio could see that King of Fire was not in a good condition. Apparently, he had used up a lot of his energy to control the sword and needed to recover. After all, King of Fire was just an artifact spirit and not a real body. If it were not for King of Fire's sacrifice, Li Zongjio would not have been able to survive. It was hard to explain the entanglements and changes in the process. The Fire Ghost King nodded, and his figure once again rushed into the unparalleled sword. Then he fell silent. In the distance, the Du family members could feel Li Zongjio's decisiveness in the battle. Li Zongjio had finished his battle while the third elder was still fighting a tough battle. If the third elder had not stepped into the honorable realm, he would have been killed by the heavenly monster tribesmen's puppets. Li Zongjio glanced at the third elder. He did not go forward to help. Their target is you. These are just puppets. Even if you interrogate them, you won't get anything. Li Zongjio landed on the side and quietly watched the third elder of Sparrow God Palace fight. The third elder saw that Li Zongjio had finished off 2 of the puppets. Including the first 2, there were 4 puppets in total. He was shocked by Li Zongjio's strength. Now that he heard Li Zongjio's words, the third elder was enlightened. Obviously, Li Zongjio wanted the third elder to be captured by the puppets in front of him. This was the only way to find their specific location. He wanted the third elder to enter the tiger's den. Li Zongjio was willing to do anything to achieve his goal. Chapter 1295. This was why Li Zongjio had chosen to stand aside and watch. After all, the 3 elders had to work together to unlock the Green Bird platform. Therefore, the third elder's life wasn't in danger. However, if Li Zongjio wasn't strong enough to take back the Green Bird platform, Sparrow Divine Palace's last hope would be gone. The Ice Sparrow, who was watching the battle from below, didn't know what the 2 of them were talking about. The third elder was clearly having a hard time defending herself. However, Li Zongjio had chosen to stand aside and watch. He hadn't stepped forward to help at all. The Ice Sparrow couldn't understand this. What was Li Zongjio trying to do? Was he trying to show off his strength? If there was no need, why wasn't he killing the heavenly demon tribesmen quickly? The Du family naturally saw this scene as well. Why wasn't Li Zongjio helping? Could it be that Li Zongjio was deliberately trying to humiliate the third elder of Sparrow Divine Palace? Or was there some unresolved conflict between the 2 of them? Or were they in the middle of a negotiation? The third elder couldn't make up her mind. In the end, she finally made up her mind and asked Li Zongjio, "Do you really have the ability to take back the Flying Bird platform?" The third elder had already decided that even if she was captured, if Li Zongjio couldn't get the Flying Bird Dao platform back, she would self-destruct. At the same time, she held an elixir in her hand. "What do you think?" Li Zongjio said nonchalantly. In fact, he couldn't help but want to make a move and knock the third elder unconscious. He wasn't here to help Sparrow Divine Palace. As long as he could save Qi Yanran, it didn't matter even if everyone in Sparrow Divine Palace died. Therefore, Li Zongjio wasn't negotiating with her. "Then you'd better hurry." The third elder stuffed the elixir into her mouth and swallowed it. The elixir in her hand was a poison elixir with a delayed effect. "You only have 3 days. The elixir I just swallowed will take effect in 3 days. When that time comes, I will be poisoned to death. If you can't save me, I won't let the Flying Bird platform fall into the hands of the heavenly demon tribesmen." the third elder said nonchalantly. In other words, if Li Zongjio was unable to rescue the third elder and the others within 3 days, he would not be able to open the Flying Bird Dojo. He would have to wait for Qi Yanran to open it herself. However, if that was the case, who knew how many years would have passed? It would definitely be a long process. Then, the third elder gave up on fighting with the heavenly demon race puppet. In the next moment, the heavenly demon tribesman's sharp tail swung at the third elder, sending her flying. The third elder flew back a few hundred meters and spat out a mouthful of blood. The heavenly demon tribesman's puppet approached again and knocked the third elder unconscious with a flap of its wings. Then, it wrapped its tail around the third elder. Swoosh! Her body instantly flew into the distance. She seemed to have disappeared into the void. The spectators were baffled by the scene in front of them. Why was everyone taken away? What's going on? When Bing Ke saw this, she was stunned for a moment. How could her elder be taken away by someone? However, Li Zongjio obviously didn't want to explain to these people. Immediately her figure flashed. Boom! She also disappeared into the void. However, she didn't get too close. If she got too close, something might happen. While chasing, Li Zongjio's heart was gradually brewing a killing intent. These idiots actually dared to have designs on Qi Yanran. Since the Flying Bird Dao platform was so miraculous, Li Zongjio not only had to rescue Qi Yanran, but he also had to make sure that the Flying Bird Dao platform fell into Qi Yanran's hands. He couldn't let go of such a good thing. Evil Lord was still the same Evil Lord. Although he usually kept a low profile, he still did things as he pleased. Boom! The heavenly demon tribesman's puppet suddenly accelerated as if it had sensed something. However, Li Zongjio had already locked onto the heavenly demon tribesman's puppet. It wouldn't be that easy to escape. After passing through the vast clouds, Li Zongjio quickly saw a few magnificent mountains. Such a unique geographical environment. Li Zongjio immediately thought to himself, Buyuo Mountain. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had also kept a respectful distance from the Buyuo Mountain, which was the top of the 10 Forbidden Lands. Once, he had come to the Buyuo Mountain. Just by looking around the periphery, he discovered at least a dozen peak honorable meta beasts moving around in groups in Unluo Mountain. Therefore, Li Zongjio had directly taken them away. After all, he had nothing. Li Zongjio didn't need to waste his time here and take such a huge risk. He hadn't expected to return this time. It seemed like the heavenly demon tribesmen were hiding here. However, it made sense. In the vast eldritch demon realm, there weren't many places that were worthy of the heavenly demon tribesmen. Li Zongjio should have thought of this long ago. However, since they were already here, none of them could return alive. At the peak of the Buyuo Mountain, in front of the green bird platform, a black-robed man was sitting cross-legged on a rock and cultivating. He raised his head slightly and his lips curled into a smile. The Great Elder, you seem to be lying. The Great Elder seemed to have sensed something and his expression changed immediately. He had a bad feeling. When he raised his head, he saw a figure falling rapidly from the sky. Boom! Bang! It was the puppet of the heavenly demon tribesman. With a light swing of its tail, it threw the third elder to the ground. At this moment, the third elder was still in an unconscious state. How is this possible? When the great elder saw that his third junior sister had been captured, his eyes were filled with disbelief. Could these people be so powerful that they could capture someone from the chaotic Yuan Bell? Or could it be that Li Zongjio had released the third elder to save her life? If that was the case, it was really disappointing. You actually managed to destroy 4 of my puppets. I'm afraid that your junior sister has quite a powerful helper. The black-robed man said slowly. He was rather surprised by the loss of his puppets. After all, each of his puppets could easily fight against an honorable realm expert. Moreover, the one that was left was the weakest one. Therefore, she must have a strong helper. The black-robed man suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. Boom! A black shadow flew over like a thunderbolt. At this moment, the night seemed to be completely lit up. Even the air in the Buyuo Mountain was split open. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.